Hello!
Hi!
Hi everyone, welcome back.
God.
Oh, I forgot I ripped the screen.
Oh, you did that? Oh,
Like,
like
when-
I'll just sit like this the entire time.
For anyone who watched my Magic the Gathering stream the other week, because
Were
I was
you
not here
so
last
mad
week.
that you lost a match that you punched the...
No, I actually decimated the chat, but I had a
Don't know about
whiteboard
that,
that had Wheels in the World scores on it, and literally minutes before the stream, it fell over and ripped the paper, and I was like, no! I just spent the whole day doing that!
Yeah.
But that's not what we're here to talk about
No,
today.
it's not.
No, we are here to talk about the brand new Donjons and Dragons movie. We got ourselves some Dungeons and Dragons movie branded beer.
We do.
As you can see, I have the cider variant because I cannot drink beer.
What does it say, Wheels?
It says Donjons and Dragons. Is that not what your guys says?
Don
Yeah.
John,
Yeah,
Sandra,
Don John.
cider.
Donjons. Oh, I think
This
mine's
is,
the French one. Sorry.
Yeah, it is. This is Hither... This is Hither Tither, New England Pale Ale. That's what we have.
Hither Tither.
Hither Tither. And I think, Maddie, maybe...
Apparently the audio is going for the left speaker, so feel free to talk
Oh,
about beer for a
right.
second.
Okay.
Well,
Just
we'll
through
wait,
that.
because I was going to do
Interesting.
something that I thought
Yeah,
was quite important.
ASMR, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
What?
What?
Quite left aligned for some reason.
Huh. Well, we are. No,
Strange. I don't know how that happens. I don't know how to do that on purpose.
No.
So
No.
It's mono now.
I don't
Hooray,
know.
mono!
Yeah, it's fine. It's mono.
We're
I
okay.
literally a
happening.
single source of audio, so I have no idea why I decided to go for one channel, folks. But there we go.
That's
Very fun.
That's just one of the
We
fun
love
parts
that.
of our job.
We love it. So I was thinking we could all, maybe mainly me and Maddie, but all of us can do
Crack
a
it
little
together.
taste test.
Yes.
And
No.
see
Yeah.
what it's
Well, I've got
like.
the official Dungeons and Dragons cider here, as you can see. So.
Yes. 3,
Yeah.
2, 1. Baby!
Oh,
Delicious.
It smells like pale ale.
Oh, it does.
Okay.
Cheers.
Wow, tastes a lot like
Yeah.
inches if you've ever tried that.
I was really like, oh yeah. I was like, what is this? You're not involved.
I just want to be one of the girlies.
Got a beer with a fork in it.
What? You just said 2 F words in a row there.
Did I? Did I say another one?
Oh my god.
Energy is like the last day of school because it's like,
Yeah. It's bank holiday tomorrow. It's bank holiday tomorrow. We are not in the right mind. Especially
That was
Liv.
the first one.
Liv, this is why you haven't been on streams in 4 years.
I took one sip of it and I was like,
she's already drunk. It's not her fault.
So the real reason we're here today is we've got some D&D related beverages, and we are also going to be doing a spoiler cast of the film. Yesterday, literally yesterday,
Yeah.
Maddie saw it for the very first time. Liv
First
saw it
time.
for the 3rd time, because that is how dedicated we are to making content for you
Yeah.
all.
Something should be coming up on the channel eventually.
Yeah,
That I
Liv's
need-
working on a
Something
very
so
comedy area.
good.
Something I've needed to watch the film several times to
Yeah.
get
But
right.
We've
So
gone full on nerd mode, which is very exciting.
yeah.
But we are going to be talking about, as the video team, our full thoughts about the film, and this is going to be a spoiler cast. So if you've not seen the film,
Yeah.
or if you're like not worried about spoilers, then obviously that is also fine. If you're not planning to see the film, then we'll pretty much give you the whole plot. It's not a very complicated one. And if you are planning to see the film and you don't want spoilers, then come back and watch this as a VOD after you've seen it.
Yes.
Because we will be discussing things in detail.
All of
In
it.
detail.
Everything I can
Every
remember
little-
will be coming up today.
Little bit of it. Every little bit of it.
So,
I want to do a quiz first. Liv, why don't you tell me what the notes of flavour are in this IPA?
Okay, yeah, I mean, I was like, we should talk about this.
yeah, talk about the bit.
Yeah, that's so true. We're just drinking it as
Yeah.
if everyone knows what this is.
Hops.
Oh,
Hops.
Hops. Barley.
oh my god.
You're naming
Ooh.
grains. right?
No, but
Citrus.
think of grains.
Think of grains.
Think of different grains.
To be fair,
Long.
barley
Long?
was in the ingredients. So that's
Well,
good.
there we are.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Allergens.
Oh,
I meant the ingredients.
Oh, the ingredients.
look.
Sure. I was looking at the base notes, which are different apparently than barley, despite the fact barley's in the ingredients.
I give up.
Isn't
What
it
does it
nice?
say?
Malt, wheat, and oats provide the base.
I basically said that, didn't I?
Amarillo hops in the whirlpool.
Oh, we're on the way to Amarillo.
I was
Every
thinking-
night been hugging my pillow. Right.
I got nothing
Oh,
else, Liv. That's you got everything.
Uh,
That's it.
cool, great.
I thought they have more flavour
Oh my
notes.
god,
than you.
amaretto. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Okay, well, mine is a lightly sparkling cider made with apples.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's so wow.
You know, like in Dungeons and Dragons.
This beer is based on the D&D movie.
Yeah.
It is
It
named
tastes
after
like
one
the
of the
D&D
magic
movie.
items. Yeah, I'm
The
remembering
Hither and
it.
Thither
Wow.
staff, which does feature...
Notes of Chris Pine.
Oh, it's got a woody aftertone, has
Fine,
it?
yeah.
All right, look, this is nonsense. So,
Sophia Lilies. No, that was wrong.
we have now all seen
Yeah.
the inaugural, what they called Hasbro One or something like that. What's their new like production
E1?
house?
Oh.
E1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not new.
Is it not? Is
I
this
don't-
not
I
their
don't-
first film?
I don't. E1 not no.
One's not.
Hasbro
new.
owns a.
Didn't E1 do Twilight? Did they do Twilight?
Okay.
I feel like it's
We're
something that I've
experts.
seen
Chat,
a lot
let
of.
us know.
Hasbro Movie House.
I mean, E1 is a separate movie house, I believe. I don't think it belongs to Hasbro.
I
maybe?
can't remember what the Hasbro one's called. Hasbro
I didn't know they had one.
Film publisher.
Are they also doing Barbie movie?
God, that was
Oh my God.
not a well
Let's talk about the
written
Barbie
sentence.
movie.
Oh my god, I'm literally
God.
so excited.
So if anyone in the chat's got any idea what I'm talking about, then please let me know.
No,
But
gaslight wheels into the tank.
this is the inaugural modern era film of Dungeons and Dragons. There have been
that's
some
correct.
there have been some nonsense films in the past that everyone laughs about and says are bad.
But I haven't.
I have not
watched.
seen them. There's
No.
also the animated
I've seen
film,
bits and bobs.
which does get a little tip of the hat too in the film.
It does, yeah.
But this is basically Hasbro saying this is the first D&D movie
touch
as
me.
far as. Oh my god,
touch me.
girls!
Will, she's touching me!
This is the first Dungeons and Dragons film as sort of like their start of their new cinematic universe, essentially, right?
Yeah.
In the way the Avengers and Iron Man and stuff was for Marvel.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
This is.
Yeah, that was the first one. Thanks, Liv. Now, what is wrong with you today? She's effing and jeffing. She's starting drama with Maddie.
I did swear twice. I didn't mean to. I didn't feel it come out of my mouth.
Yes, I didn't
So,
notice.
the basic plot of the film. Liv, can you please regale us with what this film is about?
Sure. Okay, so I've seen it 3 times, so this should be right. So,
Yeah, if you don't know by now.
You don't know, no one knows.
If you don't know it by now.
we open up in a prison in Icewind Dale. I believe there's an actual.
Yes.
It's actually called something. There's an actual prison that you can go to in Icewind Dale in the adventure. Can't remember what it's called. So
I never went, so I don't know.
Oh, I thought you ran it.
She's a good girl.
I went to Icewind Dale, but I didn't go to the prison.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we went. Forgot about it. Anyway, yeah. So
Damning.
I mean, it wasn't a nice place.
That's fair. Work it out.
So Holger, played by, oh my god,
Michelle Rodriguez.
Michelle Rodriguez, who is wonderful, and
good.
Edgin, played by Chris Pine, trying to appeal to a council in order for them to
A claims court, I guess you
a
call
claims
it.
court, yeah, to
Is that
be
true?
released
Yeah.
from the prison. So I'm not going to go this in depth throughout all of it, but I'm just starting.
Well, we can
off.
make sense to
right.
open. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll go through chronologically.
Okay, fine.
And as things come up, we'll talk about it.
Okay. So, yeah, so they're appealing to the court. Well, I'll stand, okay, brief synopsis of the whole film, and then I'll go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, brief synopsis, Edgin has a daughter, he has been taken away by Hugh Grant's character, and it's a heist, basically, to get her back, and stop Hugh Grant from being a butt.
At the same time, they're looking for a magical MacGuffin called the Tablet of Resurrection or something like that.
Yeah, and the Helm of
which-
Disjunction as
Which
well.
he wants to try and get his dead wife back.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
of course, he has a dead wife because it's a fantasy film.
Yeah.
But
But they literally play into the whole, like, tragic backstory
Yeah.
element of D&D, which is
Yeah.
fun, because,
Which I
yeah.
think is good.
So it's a heist movie, but there's like multiple heists that kind of happen
Yeah.
in a row.
Yeah.
And there's also an evil plot by an evil.
Yes.
Red
that's
Wizard.
behind
Very
it all,
evil.
pulling the strings.
Don't worry, you'll know who the evil person is.
Every
Tough to tell.
As soon as you see
Every
it.
time, because I was literally like leaning over to Maddie when
Yeah.
we saw it yesterday, just like, she's so evil though. Why is everyone just letting her stand
love
here?
I think they know she's evil. It's more the fact that they're like, okay, you know,
No, but
we need her, so we'll let it slide, sort of thing.
like the opening shot of her is her just glaring at them all. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. Yes. So back to the blow by blow. Yeah, they're at the council, trying to get freed, and the Dragonborn looks great.
Yeah, we get our first
Looks
taste
so good.
of the sort of prosthetics. There is also an Aarakocra in this scene that looks fantastic.
Jonathan.
There is what I thought was a dwarf, you thought was a halfling?
I think she's a halfling. Yeah.
I was with you when I originally watched it, but then Will's mentioned how the other halflings look, and I was like, she doesn't look as bad as they do.
Are you
It's-
sure?
It's
She
fake.
looks. She still looks kind of fake.
She
I
does
don't
look a
know.
bit fake. Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard.
I guess it's
to
hard
tell.
because she's on
What
a
do you
council
think?
with, like, a Dragonborn and an Aarakocra, and, like, the humans, like, further away, so it's hard to compare her.
I feel like
Have you
if
ever
they
seen?
were, because I don't think there were any dwarves in this film. I feel like if they put a dwarf in that, you would
Well,
know.
They make
They would have a beard.
warriors.
They would have
Yeah, but at the same time, like, you know, this is sort of like modern era D&D, and I think they are trying to get away from, like, every dwarf is a white guy with a beard who's
Yeah.
from Scotland or whatever. You
I
know?
mean, it could be. a white girl with a beard. We don't know. Dwarves have beards, so.
But the reason I thought it was a dwarf is because they have a very, very prominent scene of a halfling with Holger, which is Michelle Rodriguez's character, and the way that they visualize a halfling is, what if we took a human and made everything around him 2 times bigger?
But not in a good way, like
No.
Lord of the Rings,
Like,
which does it incredibly.
More like when you would watch
Hobbit.
like Smart and Art Attack, and they would put them in the painting, and he was just walking around on
You
a
know
green screen.
how in the Hobbit movies the dwarves are just shrunken men, and it looks really strange and confusing. It's like that.
It's like that.
You know, like that.
But also, we did see her stood up later in the film, and she looked the same to me. But just, I guess it depends
she
on what
looked
you
better than the male halflings.
Maybe she just looked better. Maybe she just looks better than Bradley
she's
Cooper.
just-
Spoilers.
Yeah, I think it's just the proportions of her body made me think that she was actually supposed to be like
E1, you let us
She's wearing,
know.
she's wearing like a lot of clothing as well, though, so I think it's hard to tell. Like,
hard to tell. But
yeah, that was a big tangent.
that was
but,
she's
what this
very
is
important.
about.
She's very important.
Yeah.
She has the best line of the film, and
she also comes back.
She comes
Yeah.
back several times because I think I heard that they just liked her and brought her back for other scenes.
Okay.
That's fair.
And
That's
she
a
says
classic Hollywood story,
yeah.
isn't it? It's like, yeah, she had something about her, you know.
Oh my God, and she says the last line of the film, which is Jonathan. So
Jonathan.
but yeah, so then Edgin, Chris Pine tells this like really emotive story about his backstory and how all of this came to pass, why they're in the prison,
Sad.
which was basically he was a harper, which is like a have you heard of harpers like in
I've
D&D
never
before?
heard of Harper's.
No,
but
were
I'm
they made
not
up for the film?
I don't know, because also
There's-
Emerald Enclave and stuff exists.
Yeah.
And
There's
things
a
like
lot
that.
of things like that where I was like, I did not know this was a thing, and I wonder if this is like really sort of like classic lore.
Yeah.
Like
Because
older
it's
editions.
Forgotten Realms, which is like
Yeah.
the sort of like
Which I
most high fantasy
know
setting they
little
have.
about.
It's very, very like by the numbers kind of. There are big castles and dragons, and like everyone is like a noble knight or they're a villainous villain. So I imagine that they really went with like the sort of like core lore. If that makes sense.
It makes sense. I was like, if they had the Emerald Enclave and stuff like that, it made sense to me that Harper is probably a thing that they use.
Probably
Like,
they would. Yeah.
but I
But
also
yeah,
haven't heard of it, so who knows?
who could say? Probably somebody in the chat.
I didn't know what a red wizard was, and that's
Yeah,
a real
a red
thing,
wizard is
so,
definitely
a
thing, yeah. So yeah, basically Edgin is like, he's taken this oath, but he's like, maybe I want a bit more than what I'm getting, you know, maybe I want to provide for my family a bit more. He's got his wife, and he's got his child, Kira, and I don't know if they name his wife, maybe.
Maybe? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know if
She
they
was the
do.
definition of fridged.
Yeah.
But also,
Yeah.
like, I think at the start, and this is important, and again, this is your last warning, that I'm about to spoil the whole film. So at the start, he kind of makes it seem like the Red Wizard was attacking his homestead because he was just angry at being imprisoned, and I was an innocent bystander.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the film, they kind of go back to the same backstory, and it's revealed that he was the one who stole things
from the
Red
Red
Wizard.
and they mark their treasure, which is how
Yeah.
he was. They were able to find.
Because the first was like, oh, I was so good and joined the Harpers, I was trying to do good work for them, but doing all that good, like, brought the ruin of my family, so, like, I'm not going to bother with that anymore, and I guess it's kind of like a easy way to be like, oh, this is why he doesn't want to, like,
Explain it
do
away.
good anymore and stuff, and that's why he's a thief.
But it's like a sort of like unreliable narrator kind of intro,
Yeah.
which is quite fun.
Yeah,
It's fun.
so basically the long and short of that is that his wife is murdered by the Red Wizards, who came back to looking for revenge on him, and she hid away their baby in a cupboard so that she wouldn't be hurt. Also, a little note is that, so she's killed by a Red Wizard's blade, which apparently there's nothing you can do to fix that. I have never ever heard of that.
Apart from two things.
Yes.
One of which is the main thing that they have in the film and that they're trying to
Well,
get.
it's a classic thing in D&D where there's a lot of things where you could, like, if someone died, you can use a diamond and use Revivify, raise dead, a bunch of stuff, but there are a lot of caveats to that and a lot of spells and various things that, like, if you do this, you can't, and there is one big true resurrection, is that the big
True
one?
resurrection is
where
what
even
we
if,
think
like,
the
you've
tablet
had
is.
the, like, things happen to you, you can still be brought up. So, like, it's a
Yeah.
quite common thing
I-
where it's like, you can't, you are killed.
Yeah, I saw
kind of
saw
balance
someone online talking about it, and they were like, they empathized with them because in a game like D&D, anything's possible. So as soon as you say there was nothing we could do, every single person who knows the game inside will be like, actually, why didn't you do this spell or whatever?
Yeah.
So they needed some kind of narrative device to be like, she's gone and this is the only way to get her back. Right?
Yeah.
But as I said, there are a lot of things in D&D that do that. So like, that's,
So then after his wife dies, he kind of goes into a spiral and he's trying to look after Kira, but he's not doing a very good job. That's when he meets Holger, who basically feels sorry for Kira and by extension him, and starts like looking after Kira, and they become close friends, and it's very cute.
So nice.
It's really cute.
We
Nice.
love a male-female friendship.
We do.
Yeah.
There's never anything else.
Yes, that was a really big point of mine. They never tried to do the whole like, oh, but what if? It was there's a moment where someone like says, oh, are you a couple? And they're both like, oh
No.
god, no.
Yeah.
Which is I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because
So
that's
fun.
such a tired trope.
Yeah, it is. It's very true. So then they explain that they found other people. They found Simon the Sorcerer, played by Justice Smith, who is fantastic. Literally, I've been playing The Quarry, and I'm like, I love him. He's great.
In this, I thought he was fine.
I've seen it 3 times now, and every time I watch it, like all the characters grow on me. But I know that's because I've watched it several times.
I didn't mind him. Like, 'cause I remember when you came back from the movie and described him, I was like, oh, that sounds like really boring. But I was like, I kind of like what they're doing. Whereas, like, obviously, a sorcerer, especially wild magic one, is normally like, I'm so chaotic and I got these wild magic things. Where obviously he's quite like, kind of like, oh, you know, like shy and like kind of he's not like over the top magic-y, and I think almost I guess it's kind of fun.
He's kind of playing like a Michael Cera role, kind of
Yeah.
like where he's like, you know.
A thing for me is that I also love that it's not Michael Cera playing that role, it's Justice Smith. And also that's something that's really big for me, is that like 3 out of the 6 of like the main people in this film are people of colour. And I'm like, this is great. You know, that's awesome for me. So
it's like noticeably different than a lot of other movies.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Even though they did the tiefling incorrectly. But
yes.
I know a lot of you said like, well, in previous editions.
Oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Got a lot of comments to address on that.
Callan Drummond says what on
description.
The Dice Maker Video team call out every YouTube comment.
Oh, take a while.
Callum Drummond says, what are they drinking? Is that what you're about to say?
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. It's Hither Tither New England Pale Ale.
And
the
of
Dungeons
course,
and Dragons.
the official Don John's and Dragon cider.
No.
As you can see, it's a real logo.
It's not
Don't ignore the electrical tape.
I mean, ours has got like a red strip in it. I guess it's kind of at least even on theme.
Great. It's the D&D film branded pale ale.
Yeah,
which was sent to us, which is really nice.
Yeah, and it tastes. It tastes like a pale ale.
It's cool can.
Yeah, if you like a little IPA kind of thing, you'll like it.
Yeah, I wish it was smaller because it's quite a lot for me, but still very good.
Well, you crack on. I'll pick up where you left off, Liv. So we have this kind of like set up with the whole like, oh, here's how I got into prison, basically. This is what happened to me, and he's kind of giving his story of like, you know, I was wrongfully put in this place, and I did bad things, but you know, I'm a good person at heart, right?
Yeah.
So they have this sort of inciting incident as part of the backstory. So after the mother/wife is killed, and he has to make this whole like group of thieves to try and sort of like make ends meet.
Hugh Grant, who has a ponytail at that point. And,
does he have a ponytail in flashback? I did not remember that.
Oh my god, yeah, it looks great on him.
Oh, so good.
And
Hugh Grant
also,
is
Hugh
It
Grant
is golden age.
Yeah,
he's
having
literally
a
having
era.
so much bloody fun with this role. I almost swore again.
It's valid for this
funny.
because I'm just so happy for him.
But like literally, he's just dancing around like it's great. He's having a great time.
He's just like he's becoming queerer with every year he lives, and I love it.
It was like he had such a horrible time with like a lot of press and stuff after he was so famous. I think, and he was like away for a bit, and now he's come back, and I feel like he can just have fun now and enjoy acting, and I love that for him.
Yeah, fantastic.
Exactly.
So you've got like this like squad that they've built up. They're doing heists, and then like the sort of the thing that really kicks off the film is, pardon me, they learn of this item, this tablet of resurrection.
Well, it's that. Oh my god. Actually, it's Safina, who is the most evil-looking woman you've ever seen in your life, and she's just allowed to chill with the group.
We should do a makeup look for her.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Yes.
Yeah. Can't wait for you both to shave your heads.
No, you can do Safina, and I'll be Holger. It'll
Oh,
be so good.
yes.
Oh my gosh.
I'll shave my head.
I'll do it as well. In
I'm growing my
solidarity.
hair out. I'm sorry.
All caps.
But yeah, so Sophia's like, oh, we need to go to this Harper's Temple, and the only person who can get in there is Edgin Chris Pine because he was a Harper before, and then they go to.
I think I literally missed that in the movie.
I don't really see what you had to actually in that statement.
You said that the main thing that they went for was the Tablet of Resurrection, but it just happened to be that the Tablet of Resurrection was there because Edgin was like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to steal, and then Hugh Grant was like...
in the backstory,
yes,
that's what convinces him to do something bad, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And that heist is the crime that they're in prison for.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, well, and again, this is unreliable narrator, so you don't really know his true intentions, whether he was just going for gold. And that's kind of like a sort of sticking point for his relationship with his daughter.
Yeah.
Is that he's like, oh no, I only ever had good intentions, I sort of fell into this role of a thief to get by, and then these sort of like evil characters in Hugh Grant and
Safina.
Or
Daisy Head.
Who
was great.
They kind of like led me into this heist, saying, oh, well, there's this thing here that if you use it, you could get your wife back.
Yeah.
And, we'll just like use that as like a sort of fishing rod to get you in because you're actually a really good person.
Loads of gold and magic items and loads of stuff.
Yeah.
There just happens to also be that there.
Oopsie. But, oh yeah, also the reason that Safina wanted to go there was because she picks up a magic item that she needs, which is something that we'll get onto later on.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very key thing for her being an evil red wizard, and it allows her to do evil things better.
Yes, exactly.
So that was her like ulterior motive that she didn't reveal to the group.
Yeah.
We're not entirely sure, but it was probably true that Hugh Grant's character knew what was going on.
Oh yeah, he did.
He's very much like, I don't give a shit about these people. Oh, now I've done it! Oh my god, a dice breaker after dark. I'm sorry, foul language.
Look, we said tipsy, so you knew there'd be alcohol. You knew it was the kind of vibe.
I don't give a crap about these people. I'm just in it for the money, and that's kind of his whole thing. So they turn up for this heist. They use his Harper status to get into the place, and then there's the key thing, which is kind of like viewed from different perspectives, and this is really the interesting thing about them using the unreliable narrator is because they all have different information on how the thing went wrong.
Yeah.
So you see that with Simon the Sorcerer, you see it with Safina, and you see it with Holt. What's Hugh Grant's character called? I keep calling him
Forge.
Thank you. And it happens with Forge as well. So from the perspective, oh my god, we just got a £50 super chat. Thank you so much for being saved.
Thank you.
I haven't seen the film, but I love you, wonderful people. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. We've been getting, I will say, we've been getting a lot of super chats and stuff, especially on super thanks on story breaks and stuff like that. We really, really appreciate it. Thanks so much, everyone, for your support.
By the way, we should probably mention on Story Breakers that the whole of season 1 is out now. Completely out.
It's finished.
It's out. You can watch it.
Reviews are in from the comments and they are stellar.
Glowing.
But this isn't us hyping ourselves up. This is what every comment says. People are like, this is the best D&D show I've ever watched. People are like, I can't believe how well this went. So, we physically are not being arrogant when we say that it's gone down really well. We're really proud of it.
You've been very kind.
Yeah,
a lot of people are I think pleasantly surprised because it is very different than a lot of D&D actual plays.
Narrative driven.
I think a lot of people are like, this has been like something I really wasn't expecting, but I really, really love. So check it out. You know, something different.
Yes.
So
and also, sorry, one more thing.
Oh,
the podcast.
Yeah.
It's a podcast now as well. So basically, tomorrow's Friday, from 6 p.m. tomorrow, all 8 episodes of the first season will be out in podcast form. Yeah. So
4 are out right now.
4 out now.
The first 8. There are 14 total.
Yes, there are 14 total. Yeah. So you can check that out now, tomorrow, whatever you want.
There's no excuses now. You can listen to it anywhere. It's so easy.
Also, Callum Drummond, it is a pale ale. I am being an idiot. I'm drinking a cider because I physically can't drink beer because I have an intolerance to it. And I wrote a stupid little paper label. Anyway, so we have this incident where they're like, oh my god, we've been caught, like the alarm gets sound, whatever happens, and like the heist goes wrong. Safina casts a time stop spell.
Yes.
I feel free to correct me on the correct name. Is it called Time Stop?
Yeah,
it's called Time Stop. Look at me, I'm a nerd. And it's
there.
good. I got it.
We're right here.
I know you are. So, like, the kind of perception of it, which is weird because she's so obviously evil, but the perception of it from Holger and
Edgin.
Edgin. God almighty, there's so many names.
Yeah.
Holger and Edgin is that they're like, oh, she cast the time stop to try and give people a chance to escape, but some people got stuck in there, i.e. Holger and Edgin, and they were like, oh, I'm so sorry, there's no time, we have to leave you behind.
Because, like, when she grabs the evil magic item, a lot of, like, evil creatures or something come out, so it's like, there were a lot of creatures attacking, so it's, like,
I think
kind
it
of
sets off
justified.
a triggered thing as well,
So-
right?
Yeah,
like
so
a
it's like-
classic,
It's
you
when-
grabbed the
Oh,
item
it's when-
from the
It's
museum.
when Edgin takes the tablet, because
Yes.
there's like a little...
Right.
And at the
string
same
on it.
There's a string.
And at the same
Yeah.
time, she also gets her items, so then she's like, ideal, this is like... So it is understandable why they could believe that she was trying to help.
It's
Because
just
there was loads of creatures attacking, and so it was like... oh.
just hitting me, why on earth wasn't there a trap on the Horn of Death rather than the Tablet of Resurrection? I don't understand, but okay.
Yeah, who knows? Or maybe she knew about the traps and managed to... whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, but, okay, so the point is, everyone's like, oh, okay, no, Thomas, I'm not just realising I'm being an idiot again. 90% of the things I say are nonsense. Don't take me too seriously.
It's true.
Anyway, so we've got this incident where it's like, so that's how I got caught, and then it cuts back to the present day, and he's like, look, I'm really a good person. I just got in this bad situation. I got led in with a bad group of people, and I hope that you can forgive us and give us our exit.
And also a funny point with that is that he turns to Holger and is just like, anything to add? And she's like, nope, because he's the bard and he's literally just talking about
And she's
the
just been
situation.
sat there
Like,
eating a
eating
potato
potatoes.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So throughout this whole monologue, and I'll let you pick up here, Maddie, they've been referencing a character called Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Jonathan. I love it, because, like... You're kind of like, at first I thought that they were referenced, because they kind of go in, to this appeals process, and they're like, oh, one chair's missing. Like, oh, is it Jonathan? Is that how they say it, or is it Jonathan?
His name is Jonathan, but they go Jonathan.
Okay, it's Jonathan.
Yeah.
Okay, so like,
Is it? I thought it was Jonathan. Anyway, it doesn't
Okay, I'm gonna say Jonathan, because I'm gonna say Jonathan every time.
Jonathan?
Jonathan. And they're like, oh,
Right, you are Jonathan.
Jonathan joining us, and they're like, oh, he's late, or but we will just carry on. And he's like, oh, okay, and he keeps cutting the story out and be like, is Jonathan coming? Is he coming? And just as they're like getting to the process, which I love, where they're like about to stamp and they're about to lift up the stamp and say like whether they've got the appeal or not, Jonathan walks in, who is this big Aarakocra.
He looks...
Bird person, for anyone who's not familiar with
Yes,
it.
oh,
Yeah, bird person. He looks pretty good.
It looks fantastic, I think. Yeah,
I like him.
we saw a tweet recently of someone dressed up as him at a convention.
Yeah.
I think it was-
completely practical suit. So and it looked identical.
it was
so I don't
him.
think it was the actual costume.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so there's so many really good practical effects in this
Yeah,
film.
which I love.
The
With
Dragonborns
Jonathan
look
included.
slightly better, but the Aarakocra's alright.
Yeah, yeah. I think because they were like trying to get the wings to work and stuff, so like you can tell it's like not perfect, but like I'm happy they would rather do that.
I still
than
think it looks fantastic.
CGI,
I think
yeah.
it's really good.
It's really fun. And then Jonathan comes in, and they just jump straight to him, right? They don't like say anything.
Against like Holger now, and then she starts smacking people with some chairs and
Yeah,
stuff.
and they jump on Jonathan and they smash out of the window, and obviously because he's now a Aarakocra,
They basically
he
use
can
him like a
fly.
sky glider.
Yeah.
But the great thing is, it's genuinely, I think it's the best joke in the film.
Yeah.
Because they're like, they lead throughout the whole intro, and they're like, oh, I really think Jonathan... So the implication in your head is like, oh, is he a harper? Yeah.
Or
Or
a friend,
a friend.
Like they've worked
Someone
together,
who worked in it,
or like he
anything.
knew his
Very
wife.
good.
I
They're
would thought
like-
it was like they knew his wife or something. And they
Yeah.
understood like the things
it's
he's
like
been through.
someone who'll be like either like a kind ear to our sob story, someone who we've tipped off, anything like that, and then they just completely pull the rug out. It's like it's just a bird
just
that
wanna
they use
fly
the
off of
sky
it.
glider.
I also love as well. You never hear whether they're actually going to get off or not. They don't
No,
wait to listen.
No, you actually do.
You do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because afterwards they're like, no, we approved your pardon.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think because you can tell because it's blue, and when at the end when they're going to disapprove Forge, it's red. So
Yeah.
I was like, I could tell they were going to approve it, and I thought that was even more fun. I didn't even hear that, but I was like, I love that it was kind of obvious they were going to approve it, and they still
they still
jumped
did
up.
it.
with
It's like,
it.
for God's sake,
Yeah.
you
made
got
the
the
plan.
yes. So now that they're
Just so
wanted
fun.
criminals, despite
Again.
being moments away from pardon,
Yeah,
which is
very funny.
brilliant. It's a really strong opening for the film.
It is, yeah.
I think it
It's
really
very
got off
fun.
to a really strong start. And then that is when we're officially out of jail and the film begins in proper.
And
Yeah.
you see like a map going through Faerun. They start in Icewind Dale. They
Yeah.
go like through to like Neverwinter. Yeah, it's really fun. Like design work. It's really cool.
Yeah, so like people that have like play some of the adventures. Like me and you were like, oh, it's so fun. It's an Icewind Dale because we both played Icewind Dale.
Yeah.
We loved it. We were like,
Like,
it
oh
was
my God,
enjoyable.
yeah.
Like,
Also
I've seen that. I
Also
know
a very
that.
popular
In my
video
mind.
game based on D&D because it was, I mean, it's old, but like this is the old sort of like Baldur's Gate era of like computer RPGs. Icewind Dale was one of the big ones, so I assume that they wanted one of those settings that would also be useful
It was
for
like
people who haven't played the Neverwinter Nights, Icewind Dale, Baldur's Gate are all these like very highly revered like RPGs from the 2000s.
Just want to
So they're getting all of the fans.
point something out that Dicebreaker in the chat says, I assume it's one and only Matt Jarvis.
Oh.
It says, excuse me, Wills, but the best joke is the random guy that yells, he's nicking our bits and bobs!
We haven't got there yet. We're going to get there, Matt.
I would assume that's Alex Meehan, given the
Meehan's
other
off.
bit. But
Alex
that's
Meehan's
true.
off,
That's
so,
true.
yeah.
But
So
yeah,
if it's not Alex, man, you're
who
off.
knows?
Yeah. Who is that?
I disagree.
It's Jonathan! And the reason we're saying Jonathan is because the woman shouts his name like that.
Yeah.
Whereas
Jonathan.
he's nicking our bits and bobs is like 0.5
good.
seconds of screen time that it was just a funny voice.
Yeah.
and
So
bobs.
But it's
I
very
think
good.
that
Whoever-
speaks to the level of humour that Matt Jarvis works at, to be
Whoever
honest.
played that guy, though, slayed. So,
Yeah.
Truly
He ain't.
boots the house down.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, they head on out and they steal some horses and they head they head back to Edgin's family home, hoping
Yeah,
that Kira is going to be
Because the last thing when they're in the heist, before the time stop ends, is he hands the tablet
Yes.
to Forge and is like, look after Kira,
Yes.
resurrect my wife,
Yeah.
bring it back. And so they go to the house being like, we're going to see Forge and Kira, I hope she's okay, they've been looking after each other. And then they get there and the house is in ruins.
It's been left
empty.
for ages.
Yeah.
It's also where Edgin finds his reinforced loot that was hidden in the same cavity that
Where the
baby
baby
Kira was.
Yeah.
Then they go and have a drink. And as they're chatting,
Our joke of are you two a couple, and they go,
they're like,
"Oh,
"Bleh,
that's
no,
disgusting."
with those lips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which just isn't addressed for the longest time, which I like quite a lot. Like he's just like that's a Holga thing. Yeah, and then they're like folding up a napkin, or what he thinks is a napkin, and they realize that it's Hugh Grant's face doing a fun little winky magic like animation.
A boomerang.
thing. Yeah, it's a boomerang. Saying like, "Ooh, Lord of Neverwinter invites you to the High Sun Games." I think.
Yeah.
It's
I
very
assume
like
it's
not
that.
to bring up the turf movies, but it's very like that Harry Potter like moving newspaper
Trans rights.
style like
Yes.
sort of thing. And they're like, okay, so we know where he is
Something's
now.
happening.
How did he do
We've
this?
got
but
our
we
next
Yeah.
step in the plan, but also how on earth has the like, you know, weird little con man that we used to hang out with become
Yeah,
the Lord
do
of
petty
Neverwinter?
theft.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So good setup, right? Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they head on to Neverwinter. They get straight in, which I was like, oh, they're just getting in there. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And they see Kira again. And Edgin's like,
cold.
she's old.
She's cold.
She's old now.
Can you imagine? She was just really old.
Oh no, they Benjamin Buttoned her.
She's ancient too.
I went on the beach that makes you old.
Oh my god.
She would have got younger as she aged.
No.
Oh god.
She would-
Wow, we're really all reverse Benjamin Buttoning ourselves here, aren't we, gang?
Yeah, for sure.
Every single day I'm reverse Benjamin Buttoning.
Yeah.
I can't say that out loud. Benjamin Buttoning.
It's not meant to be said.
It's meant to be forgotten.
For real.
Oh god.
But yeah, she gets the. They
She's
get
cold.
the. Kira's cold. She's like.
She hugs Holga.
Olga. And then she's like, Father.
Dad.
This is also when they get to Neverwinter. This is something I wanted to point out. Is when they first start using interiors because they filmed a lot of this in the UK.
And Ireland? Yeah.
Huh?
And Ireland.
And Ireland. And you can tell from a lot of the interior shots, I think, these really like, because Neverwinter's this big grand city made of white stone. They've used a lot of the like cathedrals and stuff like that, I think, in the UK. And this is the first scene where they're sort of like waiting inside. And it's literally, I don't know if anyone's played Pentiment or the Ken Follett game, Pillars of the Earth. But like it's that classic like interior of a monastery kind of thing.
Was Pentiment mentioned a lot in the BAFTAs recently?
Possibly, it's a very good game.
Okay.
It's the one with the medieval illustrations
Yes.
art style.
I really want to play that.
Oh, it's fantastic. I recommend it.
We will play.
But yeah, so like there's a lot of really lovely interior shots, and it's another theme of it's not just CGI, which I genuinely massively applaud the studio for. Especially, I think, given the nature of the film, being a tabletop film, with things like LARP and stuff like that, like, it would have felt really crappy to me if they just made a Marvel style. Everyone sat in front of a green screen for 10 hours and here's our film.
That's so true.
Which
like
I did really appreciate.
It is physical. Like they are, you know, like you're in person. You're like playing with like physical dice and stuff. Like, I mean, obviously you can do it all digitally, but like, you know, it starts off physical. Like it is still quite a physical hobby. So yeah.
I also heard that they actually filmed as a volcano was properly going off. Like, that volcano that was going off was, like, real.
Well, there was like, a spell that we were, like, we didn't realise was practical effects, fully. Like, the one I said.
There's the...
Where they can, like, sink into the ground.
Sink in the ground, like sandstone, transmute stone.
Yeah.
Transmute rock, yeah.
Looked really good, and then you're like, oh, it's all practical effects, and you're like, yeah, no wonder it looks so good. Like, they did it in one shot because they had to, like, lay all these tiles to make it look like a normal tiled floor, and then, like, erupt it.
It's very cool.
I love that.
So then they sit down with Kira and Forge, and there's a funny bit where Forge is talking about how the tea's really hot. It's just very good Hugh Grant acting and very funny. And they're just talking about stuff for a little while, and then Forge is like, here comes my good friend Safina.
It's like, oh, they're still together. What's going on here?
They're together.
They're screwing.
So Safina comes down the stairs looking as evil as ever. She's so
Hello.
evil!
I have returned from my puppy killing session. And to be fair, they know what they're doing with that as well. Like, it's not. I don't want it to come across like, oh, they thought they were being really subtle with this character.
It's
we don't think that.
funny.
She's so obviously cartoonishly evil.
But that's fun because, like, again, like, a lot of some classic D&D villains, like things like a red wizard are, because all they want is like death and evil and destruction. It's like
she has no motives whatsoever outside of I want to kill everyone on Earth. You know?
Like,
she's just nonsense.
Obviously, like, it's great that we've had this push towards like complex villains and like stuff, but like sometimes it's just fun to have someone to root
Especially
to hate.
You
know, like you don't need to be like everyone's got some tragic backstory for reasons they do stuff. Like she's just
evil, mate.
Evil.
She's just evil.
You're a bad guy.
She's just a really good bad guy. So then she comes down and they're like, what, you're still working with her? That's so wild. And then
screwing.
Everyone's asking the same question. And then Forge is like, the tea's hot, and then she sticks her whole finger in there and she's just got a nice finger, and he's like, ew. Which is funny.
That's great. Just put it. Brilliant British acting.
Very nice. I'll save that for later. That's very good. And then they get into talks, and so Kira says something like, oh, of course that's where you came back for your tablet of riches.
Yeah.
So Forge has told Kira that the reason that they all went there is because Edgin, her dad, wanted more money.
And there was a whole scene when they were going to do the thing, and Kira was like, they were going to do the original heist to get the tablet, and Kira was like, don't go, like, please just stay, like, I don't want you to go, and he was like, no, like, this is the last one, I promise, this is the last thing I have to do, like, you know, she really didn't want him to do it anyway.
It's a pretty classic sort of, like, oh, I'm your deadbeat dad, and, like, you know, you keep giving me chances, and you've finally given up, and now I have to win back your affection.
So then, Kira's like, oh, tablet of riches, blah, blah, and they realise that Forge has been kind of poisoning her with, like, ideas about them saying that they're bad people, blah, blah, and...
Cat will not eat the food.
So
it's open. I'm eating them yet.
So Forge is like, oh, you... Forge is like, oh, you've been lying since the moment you came in here, and basically, like, pulls out, like, a wanted poster with them both on, like, oh, Kira, they escaped from jail, you know, blah, blah, and then Kira runs off like, and then they're like, oh, you're the worst, and then they do the transmute rock spell, looks really cool. They basically see that they're very outmatched when it comes to Safina, and she is protecting Forge for whatever reason.
Kira, by the way, not much of a character.
No, not really.
Kind of just like a bit of a prop.
I mean, they have a lot of prop characters in this film, and then a lot of them are women and girls, unfortunately. But still. And also, something that I will commend is that, they cast an actual person who is 3/4 white and 1/4 black to play this girl, and it makes sense for, like, Edgin and his wife, and I was like, oh my god, they did some good casting. That's very exciting. They didn't just phone it in. That was very exciting to me. Yeah.
Yeah, she
looked
she looks cute.
She looked great. Yeah,
it makes sense.
correct. Yes. So
did you mention about she ran off because he held up the poster?
Yes.
That
they'd have escaped from prison.
Wheels. I'm so sorry.
Thank you for doing
That's
your part.
fair.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for doing your part for women everywhere.
Hey.
So
Feminism.
So you've got this sort of like setup of like, okay, now we know what's really going on. Forge betrayed us. And Forge is the evil person. And he's just using Safina as a tool.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, and again, spoilers for everything. It's like, okay, it's another little misdirection where it's like, we think Forge is the mastermind. He's behind everything when clearly, I wonder who the real evil person is in this
be?
So hard to tell.
But you've got this kind of thing of like, okay, they're like getting carried off to be executed because they escaped from prison, basically.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh crap, like the whole.
Oh, I think Forge actually says, send them back and collect the bounty, but Safina's like, kill them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or in front of the daughter, maybe they're like, oh no, we'll just send them away.
No, Kira's already run off by that point.
Yeah,
Right.
and then Forge is like, go collect the bounty, and then he leaves, and then Safina's like, kill them.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Actually murder them.
Because there's a bit later on where spoilers, they escape. There's a bit later on when she's like, that these guards let them escape, and then
5 minutes later, they get beheaded. Film ends.
We love the movie.
it's pretty.
It's half an hour long.
So they go to get executed, and Egan's like to Holger, "Oh, you've got this, right?" And Holger's like, "Yeah," and then she starts like talking to the guard about his axe, and she's basically like sizing up the axe, and she's like, "Oh, what do you clean it with?" Blah blah blah, and it's a fun conversation to both get him kind of distracted, but also get her stuff ready to use improvised weapons to beat them all up, basically, which is really cool. Yeah, and also on the stat block for Holger, she actually has proficiency with improvised weapons.
That's fun.
That's fun.
Yeah, so
One of the main things she does is potato throwing as well.
Yes,
so.
exactly.
That's
proficiency in potatoes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And another so we've got our execution scene, and it sets up the first of a recurring theme of here is 5 minutes of one character beating up 400 people.
Yes.
Which is a very like Marvel thing, which I actually really didn't like because
no, I don't either.
It
looks great.
It's fun. They're well choreographed.
Yes.
You can tell it wasn't just sort of shaky cam. Let's wave our arms around. But from a narrative perspective, I thought that it really undermined the danger of 90% of the situations in the film, because you're like, oh, okay, well, they're superheroes and they can...
Yeah.
A whole group of guards, who gives a crap?
That is your problem with D&D, though, because that is accurate to D&D in that if you have a class, like, like a regular guard is not a fighter. They don't, like, if you're a first level fighter, you're already better than, like, a regular guard, you know what I mean?
Like a grunt.
Yeah, like, a whole point of having a class is that you are, like, super specialised in these, like, specific skill sets. So, like, a barbarian against like a bunch of like just regular guards, that would be an accurate fight. Yeah. But I understand that like you already think D&D people are like kind of superheroes. So I can understand why like it's not.
That's true, but it is also the fact that it's not necessarily the fact that they can beat up 40 people. It's the fact that there was no greater outside of Safina herself. Yeah. There wasn't anything that they were really scared of.
Yeah.
There's even a whole scene where they're fighting a dragon and they're running away from it because it's a dragon, but then they're just like, well, just blow it up! And it's like, there's no real peril ever, you know?
My qualm with this is that I would have liked to see everyone fighting together more often.
Yes, I heard that from a few people.
Yeah, that's so fair.
Like,
which is D&D, right?
Yeah, if Edgin could have been... Because, like, they did a kind of thing where Edgin was like, whoa, we got him now! And he's, like, trying to escape. But, like, to me that was like, oh, a little bardic inspiration, maybe? Which is cool. But... make it like clear that that's what's happening, like but also another big thing that I didn't like about this is that Edgin doesn't have spells. He's a bard. Apparently, according to his stat block, he does.
Just got a comment on that.
Ooh.
Oh, really?
Laura B.
Oh.
I was really hoping for more bardic magic.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like more teamwork, I guess, in that fight.
Yeah, exactly, Laura B. So, like, no, he doesn't have any cool spells, hypnotic patterns, like Thunder Wave, like, he should have spells.
You could, because obviously, I understand, I guess, in some way, they're like, oh, we're trying to show that, like, Simon's a sorcerer, he does magic, and, like, the bard is different, but, like, I just think you miss a lot of the fun of what a bard can be, which is support. Like, a sorcerer is, like, really good attack and stuff, but like a bard is a support class,
Yeah.
which is very different than sorcerer, so you can do support magic and like.
I think this
by
is...
the way, we just got a super chat from Kirk
Oh,
Taylor.
Taylor, thanks so much!
So
Everyone's been so generous recently.
No, thank you
Very much
guys.
appreciate
It
it.
means a lot, genuinely does.
Celebrate the first super chat from Kirk Taylor as well. Thank you. First time ever super chat. We really appreciate that. And I think this is where we run into one of the central problems that they had when making this film, and which I kind of empathise with, where it's like, we are trying to distill a game that has been running since the 80s with hundreds and hundreds of tomes of knowledge and rules and spells, and make it palatable for, like, a nuclear
People
family
who
with their
have
10-year-old
never,
kid
ever heard about
who
it.
don't give a crap about anything.
And sometimes they do that in an okay way where, you know, Edgin's more of like a speaker role. Sometimes they do things in an unnecessary way, like calling Doric's like hellish rebuke a fiery rebuke instead of hellish rebuke. It's not in the film, but it's in his stat block. It's
Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a couple of different examples there where it's like, I think a D&D fan or a D&D lover would like look at that and think, oh, what the hell, that's weird, like why did they do that? And I think a lot of the kind of explanation for the ways in which they treated some types of spellcasting or ways in which they did fights or certain rules or whatever, it's like they're being faithful, but they've got a lot of creative license to try and make it cohesive in a movie setting.
Yeah.
Which is where there's a little bit of disconnect.
Yeah, I said to a lot of people when I was like, I think it was a very safe first attempt.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a big thing that plays into it. And I just hope that if they did more, they could kind of open it up a little bit more. And like now they've established it, they can kind of be like, we understand what these things are now, and like you understand what a bard is. We can like show a little bit more. Like,
and the biggest like example of that is Marvel, right? Where like you've got the exact same thing. You start off with Iron Man, who's just some guy who's really smart, and he builds a suit, and then we gradually introduce weirder stuff until the point where you get to, I think, one of the biggest inspirations for this film is Guardians of the Galaxy, and then you've got all the strange things they put on the TV shows, like the House of M stuff and whatever. I'm not a big comic book fan guy, but you can see how you have to start, get people in, and then gradually introduce those concepts over like lots of things.
That wild. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, Purple Master says, to be honest, as far as the movie shows, it's explicitly, Edgar could have had 0 actual levels and just had decently high stats as it like a human.
Yeah.
But
not even that. I mean, he's not very fighting competent either.
And it's just frustrating. As someone that plays the support cast a lot, like we do a lot for you guys. We keep you alive, and I just feel like we've been disrespected.
Bards are so fun as well. It's a shame.
Like there's so much cool, interesting, amazing bard spells, and they have one of like the greatest spell lists, and it's like.
In fairness, it makes a lot of sense. First of all, it makes a lot of sense to have a bard as the main character.
Yes.
Because they're the most talkative players.
Yeah.
They're the like most beloved kind of like comedy style character in
it's
D&D.
the classic like not a normal fantasy film, like Lord of the Rings is
Yeah.
never gonna have a bard, whereas like this is like it's something different.
And I completely respect that decision. I think that it was good to do. And as well, Chris Pine was really good.
Yeah,
was really good male lead.
It was fun.
It's another white guy, but it's like he does it well.
But like you know what
But like he does it well. He's got like good comedic timing. He's charismatic. He's got like a nice like few emotional moments and all that kind of stuff. But like there's an element of and this is something that we spoke. The full review that me and Liv put together is on the channel already. If you want to watch that, the thing that I spoke about is that like the film felt like it wasn't trying to capture what it's really like to play D&D. It's trying to capture what people see playing D&D as, what like people imagine D&D as. And I think that bard role, the 90% of the time, they are just kind of smoozing and chatting around. And the spellcasting kind of takes a back seat, I would, from my perspective of what I've seen of games, even in Storybreakers, right, which it obviously is not a very sort of spell and combat heavy setting, but like, you know, it's 90% of Carrieros is talking. It's not necessarily what's seen from a like mainstream eye as a wizard, you know, right?
Yeah.
I think the thing, I guess, like, where I'm, like, shaking my head is because the reasons I love bards is because they're utility casters. They're not casting a loads of spells in fights that are not, like, healing and, like, they're healing and things like that, but they're not, like, doing any damage spells. Whereas a lot of the fun of playing support casters that you do a lot of stuff outside of big fights. And I feel like there's a lot of fun stuff that bards can do in other situations that can really help with stuff. And I'm like, they kind of miss the trick of being like, bards can do all these really fun things when we're, like, exploring and, like, dungeon delving and stuff like that.
Like, there's a point as well where I really thought, so it's actually Simon casting Major Illusion and Ed becomes... it's horrific.
We'll get to that,
and Edgin's, like, coming in and, like, playing his like, do-do-do-do. I thought he was... So I thought, oh, Edgin's a glamour bard and he's doing an enthralling performance. How exciting!
Oh, yeah.
I was like, and so
that would have been fun.
So with that, you like you perform for people for like a minute, and then they just kind of like they'll do what you say basically, or they'll be more kind of like they'll be enchanted by you basically, like, you know. But it was a Major Illusion, which was a very funny scene. But I was like, ooh, that's exciting, and then it wasn't.
Yeah, like it could have been him doing something. Like, there's multiple spells that he could have been doing that it didn't have to be Simon.
But this is where I think we come up against the goals of the film.
Yes.
Unfortunately, you two probably weren't the main target audience. It's for people who, like, maybe have played it a couple of times with their mates or who have never played D&D before. That's who they really kind of care about, I think. Because at the end of the day, this film was made to sell more D&D books, right? So it's like, they
know
want
that
to
we're
capture the mainstream audience.
They know that we're going to see it anyway, but they wanted to also capture the people that...
Yeah. They want to make it simple. Sorcerer does magic. Bard plays their lute and is good at talking, and like, and I totally understand it, and I'm not like, it's so stupid they did that. I'm like, it makes sense they did it. I'm just like, I'm just like, oh, it would have been so fun if they'd done this also, but like, I there's other things that I said, I think, that's clear that they've just cut some stuff for time. There's like some stuff that I'm like happens. I'm like, it kind of feels like there was something else that happened here that you guys cut scenes out of. Yeah. So like, I understand they only have 2 hours. Like, you can't. Yeah. There's only so much you can do, and they're trying to keep it simple and also make it fun and stuff. Like,
pacing.
I get it.
Is a big comment that I think all three of us who reviewed it for Dicebreaker had.
There was a lot to cram in there. There was a lot.
Yeah.
I think they did the best of what they had, but it was a lot.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there's a romance that is pushed at the end.
The romance is
between bad. We are spoiling it, so like between the sorcerer and the druid, and it's like it feels like there should have been a load of scenes where they interacted and like, or like just one-liners where they said things to each other, and I guess they were cut for time, and so the romance at the end happens, and you're like, what?
Having watched it 3 times this time by now, I can see in the background sometimes they have them hugging when something emotional is going on, like when they're being chased down by the dragon, like Doric pushes him out of the way, and it's like they're doing little bits like that, and it's like, not enough.
And if they had that, and they also said a line to each other, it would really bring acknowledgement to the audience. So for me that watched it the first time, I was like focusing on the main stuff. But like, so I guess they cut that stuff for time, probably.
There was like there were a few times where she seemed impressed by him, where like, she was like, oh, you can speak with the dead, and then he's like, oh yeah, no, I can do that. But like,
just a couple more of those.
I'm just grateful that they didn't do a forced weird kiss at the end. So I'm just grateful that didn't happen.
It's not like they were like, oh my god, we're gonna go find a bed because we're so passionately.
Like, what if I asked you out on a date again? She was like, yeah, alright.
Yeah, so it's more sort of like, oh, okay, I respect you enough to even like, consider you an option, which was the big resolution of their storyline.
But it still feels like kind of out of nowhere. Much, it still like, oh, okay.
And Puffermaster says, why did they put things like that in the background? And that's the kind of that's the main complaint we have. It's like there's so much shoved into the time frame.
Big story.
And Liv, from your perspective, you're like, oh, I think they did the best of what they could.
Yeah.
I feel like they were too indulgent. That was my kind of like takeaway from it was, did we need to go to the underdark? Did we need, like, there was a lot of things where it was like, we've got to cram in all the references, we've got to show all the spells, we've got to show off all the, and it's just like, if we had just been a bit more reserved and just dialed back a few of the elements, you could have had a lot more moments for those characters to really interact with each other.
I would have loved more character moments as opposed to more seeing stuff from the world.
That's what D&D is. It's anyone that's played it knows, like, the enjoyment mostly comes from just like interacting together, and like that's why you have like 3-hour sessions of shopping, because you're just chatting to each other.
And like, if you've got 2-player characters who are like starting a little romance thing, that's not how it would happen.
No,
like they would have like proper moments with each other, and it would build and stuff, and it's like, how can people around a table write a romance better than the actual
But this is like as we said, there's multiple heists. They could have literally just cut out one of the heists probably and like or made it shorter or simpler or just cut one of them out and then like if you want it to be 2 hours, you're gonna keep it 2 hours.
Callum Drummond says, "Well, I only just noticed Liv wearing a Memento Mori sweater, kind of dark." So this this is Una's Arnis. It's like they were it's Markiplier and Crank Gameplays, and it was a channel they did. They had it for a year and then deleted it. It's not just me being like, remember death, chat. It's just it's a thing. It was a
do.
If you want to, you know.
Remember that you are going to die.
Enjoy every day.
Ooh,
and
then,
Laura B says, but then we wouldn't have Chubby Dragon. I need that adorable dragon. I don't like Chubby Dragon. Sorry, mate. Sorry to be contrarian.
I like Chubby Dragon.
When he rolls.
I like it.
He wheels.
That scene was specifically made for Alex Bean because it is the epitome of her favourite YouTube video, which is a pig that's eaten.
Literally, I was talking about it in another place, and somebody tweeted me and said, "Liv, is this the video you were talking about? We were referencing the Chubby Dragon, and it was just the pig like, whoa, whoa, whoa!" I was like, "Oh, there we go, no, rolled up." Yeah.
It's great.
But yes, carrying on in the
where are we
plot.
now? Where have we run to?
They've escaped from the guards and they have not been executed. They start planning out like, oh, how should we save Kira? And so they're like, oh, we only know one sorcerer, let's go to Simon.
Yeah.
So then they go and find Simon, and this is the fabled, he's nicking our bits and bobs scene.
Do be
the talk of the town.
The talk of the town. Yeah, so Simon is like doing really like bad tricks up at like prestidigitation, like making a flame.
It's a funny setup because it's a classic thing of like, imagine trying to be a like parlor tricks magician in a world where people can summon flaming meteors with their bare hands, you know.
But yeah, so the focus that he's like distracting them up there, and he's actually using what I think is telekinesis to like take a bunch of their stuff, like, secretly.
Gold chains and pocket watches.
Yeah.
They're bits and bobs.
Or bits and bobs!
And then he notices Holger and Edgar at the back of the room. They've come to see him. And he's like, whoa, you guys. And then that makes him drop, and then that makes the bits and bobs. And then he defends himself.
I will say there's a nice moment there where so Holger is just like, why the hell are we getting this guy? He sucks. And one of Egan's kind of like core character principles is that he's like, he deeply believes in the crew, right? He's like, there's this central question which you see in the trailers where Doric is like, so what do you do? And he's like, I'm the plan guy, I make plans. It's like, yeah, but we've made the plan now, so like, what's the point of you?
When the plan fails, I make another plan. So you make plans that fail.
Yeah, and it's that joke, and it's like, it's funny, but like the question, the central question is like, what role does he play? And he is the sort of like binding glue, and that's, as you go through the film, you sort of realise like, oh, you know, they couldn't do it without him because he keeps the group together, he keeps them motivated, keeps them inspired, he thinks on his feet and all that kind of stuff.
Which
and there's a nice scene that sets that up where Holger's like, God, this guy sucks, watching his terrible magic show, and Egan sees through it, and he's like, he's not just casting magic, and points out the thieving that's going on. It's thieving. Like he sees the potential inside of Simon, which Simon doesn't actually see himself and needs to learn throughout the film.
Yeah, very good point, Wales.
Thank you.
And then so everyone descends upon Simon because he's stealing and he's nicking their bits and bobs.
So that pushes him to be like, I need to escape this place, and then he's like, well, I can't go back there. And they were like, why are you stealing? He's like, I got no money.
Also, there's some fun wild magic that happens because Simon is a wild magic sorcerer.
He's got a little, I didn't know what it was, but he's got a little reversing gravity.
It was arcane focus, I guess.
So it's this arcane focus. So what he tries to do, he's like, shield spell, and he tries to do a shield spell, but then it doesn't work. So I assume he rolled on the magic table, and then reverse gravity happened. So that's why
it's very fun.
Right, okay.
So like, it's basically like they've like almost framed it so it looks like a magic item. But
I thought he had an enchanted thing.
But like everyone needs an arcane focus, so like you need a way, which is for sorcerers is silly because their magic comes from their blood. And it's a whole thing. So like,
what's even sillier is that it's not automatically a crystal orb, which obviously is the ultimate arcane focus.
He's not a wizard. Yeah. If he was a wizard, he would have an orb.
Shadow was a money gang.
We love casting spells.
This podcast is brought to you by the Shadow Government.
We had to do the whole thing. So you have to focus your spell
every day.
We love TikTok.
But yeah, so then eventually he gets like flipped out of the theater, and and then he lands in Holger's arms because she's strong and we love her.
I'd love to land in her arms.
Strong. Me too. And then so they're like, hey Simon, we've got this gig, you gonna come help? And he's like, fine, because I don't have anywhere else to go.
So I was gonna steal all this money, but now you've ruined it. So.
Everything. And then they're like, oh, maybe we can get a druid to like wild shape into the vault and steal all the stuff or whatever.
And Simon begrudgingly is like,
I know
a druid. And it's that there's like a sort of one thing that I thought was a little bit annoying about the plot is how much of it is circumstance. Like there's never like sort of like clever ways in which it's like, oh, that's cool, they did like that's a clever thought or whatever. It's always just sort of like, oh, actually I know this. And there's a moment in the Underdark, not to jump ahead, where like Holger gets this like walking stick off of her ex.
Oh, and that annoyed me.
Just happens to be a portal gun, and it's just like,
just when we need it.
Another couple of times that has happened is when it always happens with Holger when they're like, oh, we need the Helm of Disjunction, and then they go away, they come back. Holger's like, I know where that is. I know where
I know of that.
Oh
like,
there's okay. It happened. It was a battle. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
What? You know?
And then...
that did annoy me a lot.
Yeah, if they're all rolling excellent history checks, I guess. But, like... and then also they're talking about Zenk, who somebody said earlier... Oh, Wanda said Zenk was great. Zenk is one of the best parts of this film.
Zenk was really fun.
I was middling on Zenk.
I love him.
I thought he was
I just thought he was, like, the perfect, like, this is a level 20 paladin we found, and, like... Yeah, I just thought it was really fun. It was like, you know, like we've reached, like, I feel like in every campaign you have that one really powerful magical friend, and the DM's like, you can only hang out with them so often. Yeah. Like, because I got to try and get rid of them, because otherwise why would they not just do everything for you?
I thought
it was fun where it's like when you know,
it's very good.
I thought it was fun. I was like, I've had, you know, felt accurate to playing, you know.
That was obviously a thing for the D&D players.
Yeah, I think
which is why I probably didn't land very much.
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, and then also like one of the people speaks about Zenk, and then they're like, oh, I know Zenk. So yeah, that does happen a few times.
It's kind of the whole plot.
Yeah.
Almost everything is like, oh my god, that was convenient. Like it's like a spin up Deus Ex Machina machine where it's like, oh, we got a new thing to save the plot.
I think if they'd had more time, they could have put more time into it rather than be like, well, we just got to get to the cool heist. We have to just. And I'm like, why didn't you have more? Yeah, you could have spent more time getting to know each other.
Yeah.
I think a lot. Some of it was the writer's fault, though. I think there were the elements where it's like, oh, what if we used a wild shaper? Oh, I know a wild shaper. It would have been better if it was like, you know, we need to sort of like find a crew, but we've got the absolute dregs. And then he's like, I know a druid? And they're like, what the hell would we use a druid for? And then you find out she's really good at wild shaping, and suddenly again's like, oh, we can make this work,
They
right?
always had the answer before they had
the, and then someone's just like, oh, it's over there.
Workings out, and it's really annoying. In the druid scene, when they're like, basically they've just left the town, and they're like, it's Egin, Helga, and Simon, and they're on horses, and they're like, we need to find a druid. And I was like, one of the horses is going to turn into a person. Is there a druid? And I kept waiting for it to happen, and I was like, oh. I just thought it'd be really funny if they were like, I'm a druid actually, and you guys are riding like and everyone's like, why are you doing this? It's really strange. I just thought it would have been really fun.
I've changed in front of you. You're a horse.
No, actually, Maddie, that isn't allowed because that would have given Doric some character.
Honestly, though.
So that is the next scene, right? They find Doric.
Doric's like a revolutionary, and is fighting against the machine because Forge. Because Forge is trying to destroy the Emerald Conclave's home.
Another thing that's like maybe gets 2 seconds of screen time. It's like, oh my god, Forge is really bad because he's causing environmental destruction. Anyway.
Basically they chose to question how he got into power, and so then he started like chopping down all of their home.
Which I guess you can also assume is probably Sophia.
Yeah, Sophia, definitely. You know. Yeah.
I don't think Forge really knows what's going on at any point.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
He's just kind of like
Forge is there to get money.
Around.
Forge is there to get
like
money.
Sophia was like, he's like, you know, the spokesperson I've been putting up with. And stuff.
Because she couldn't do it.
She couldn't do it. No one wants to speak to her.
It's I, Lord of Neverwinter, hello everyone. And then she like crushes someone's skull.
We have another, what we assume is a Matt comment. He hasn't confirmed or denied.
Reveal yourself, mystery commenter. Who are you?
But they said, part of me wondered if that narrative context was lost on the cutting room floor. One example, the gag about finding sharper stairs from the first trailer isn't in the final movie. So we know that there were at least some cuts. I have no idea what they're referring to.
I've said multiple times, like, watching the movie, I was like, I can almost, like, feel where they've cut stuff out.
No,
like,
100%.
I can be like, there's a lot missing.
Yeah.
I would like the full cut, please.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I'll probably get the full cut when it comes out at some point because I would like to see
the Smurder cut.
Yeah. So then, they go find Doric. There's a little bit about how Simon's like, "Hey, it's me, Simon. I courted you." And she's like, "What?" And she just does not remember him, which is that's wild. That's wild that you just don't remember this man.
I mean, I won't remember him.
No, but like in terms of you want them to get together in the end, and she does not remember he existed. Like,
but like again, if you're starting that as a fun kind of like, they'd never get together, or like like a classic like enemies to lovers kind of trope thing. Like, I'm happy with a trope where it's like kind of. They have to build on it and work for it. It doesn't always have to like be like simply like
it happens
straight away. But like they didn't have the scenes to build on it. You can't set up with that when you have so far to go.
It's also like what's so infuriating is pretty much everything. There's not like this is the harshest comment I have about film. There's not a single original idea in it. Like it's everything has been lifted from something else. Like the plot feels like Guardians of the Galaxy. The characters feel like that as well. You've got like Holger and Egan feel like Geralt and Jaskier from the Witcher show. Like there's a lot of stuff where it's okay, I see where that's from, And if you've seen enough pop culture media, you're like, I can trace the origins of every single section of this film.
Which is why it's a safe first attempt.
Yeah, exactly,
so like,
right?
people like this stuff, let's make it our own thing, because it will probably work, and it worked.
But what's so annoying is, they've got these two characters where it's like, oh, we would never get together, and then they do. Do you know how many films have done that? So many! So many things you could have borrowed.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what? They get pushed out of the way of a dragon, and then they accidentally, we're up against each other on a wall, and there's the awkward moment, and it's like, oh my god, I'm sorry,
because then it's like, they may not like each other personality, but oh my god, maybe there's sexual tension, and then it's like, maybe then we'll actually start looking at each other like that, like,
or maybe when Simon starts to like realize his potential, he kind of becomes a bit more confident. She's like,
Billy Maguire, Spider-Man 3,
or she's just like, that was really impressive. And he's like, what was it? Oh, okay. All that's so, like, seconds of screen time.
They're in a tavern and they have to share a room. Oh my god,
there's only one bed. We love fanfiction. Yes. Let's write
it reveals a lot about my reading.
Oh my god, let's do it.
Okay, we rewrite the D&D romance as a fanfiction.
Oh my god,
coming soon. I'm working on it this evening.
The problem with that is that I have absolutely no interest in them two being romantically involved.
That's what you think until you read the plan.
That's what we do with it. And also, look, I love the actors. I think they're great, and I want good things for them.
I'll be writing The Forge and Safina.
I will read that. Oh my god, I would read that.
Oh yeah.
And also something I'll point out is that
those icy fingers. Okay, sorry. Carry on.
Icky. So, I forgot what I was going to say because you just blindsided me.
Talking about romance with fanfiction and rewriting the romance. You like the characters, the actors.
The actors.
You want good for them.
Good things for them.
The druid was wasted.
Okay, so moving on, right? You've got this scene where they see her true potential because she, for some reason...
I got it. Sorry. It's just that she rescues this other woman.
And they should have been gay! They should have been gay! Oh my god!
It's literally the perfect setup. Why are they not together? Because you're like, already I'm rooting for them together. They haven't even spoken yet, and I'm rooting for them.
This one woman that we do not know the name of puts more like emotion in the way she looks at Doric than I've ever seen Simon ever do when she like rescues her. She's like, and then they like she like brings her up to the horse, and then and then all of a sudden they're just like bye.
There could have even been a fun thing where like Simon keeps trying to be like, hey, and at the end she's just like, are you not picking up the signals?
I am
you remember at the start of the film where I saved my woman lover?
She comes over and she just like hands her like an ale, and she's like, hey, and then like leaves, and it's like,
and he's like, oh, you know, anything
so
like
sorry.
that. Yeah, it would have been so obvious.
I could not believe the like. Just give us what we want. It's such an easy win. Like,
and that's why, and it's the specific lack of care for the gays brings me on to my main point about Doric. She is not a tiefling.
And before you say,
in second edition, they just look like
we don't in second edition.
You did 5th edition.
edition.
The best thing 5th edition ever did was turn all of the tieflings into crayon-coloured sex pots. Okay, it means that everyone is like, yeah, I want to be a tiefling.
Oh my god, yeah.
Sexy
Obviously.
purple
It's
demon witch.
homophobic.
Of course I do. We must be blowing up the microphone.
I know, sorry. Literally made that character. Come on, gang.
The film felt so embarrassed about the very concept of a tiefling.
Yeah.
So many scenes where her tiny little tail is like hiding around.
And then they had this thing to be like, you humans, I can't trust you. And it was like,
what?
Sorry?
what? Babe, you're wearing a horn headband. Like, no.
It's like the same bizarre feeling of like when women say I don't like other women, and it's like, what are you talking about?
Babe. I hate to break it to you.
This is why all my friends are guys. Dicebreaker says Fizz Boss agrees. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Matthew Jarvis's Tumblr posting on Maine.
Oh my god.
Right. So
Yes.
you've got this character who is just sort of like clearly very useful.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly has like a great addition to the group.
Yeah.
But that is pretty much all she gets.
Yeah.
She doesn't get cool costume. She doesn't get fun makeup. She doesn't get a real plot. She's like the.
She barely has to say anything.
She not
No,
even in the
she
romance.
doesn't.
She doesn't have any agency.
No,
It's all
yeah.
about like Simon being like, actually, I do have a pair of balls. Can we please
And
go out? And it's like, yeah, she's nothing. Unfortunately,
It's not like she never even like talks about like the Emerald Enclave or like anything else she cares about or like anything she's interested in. Like she's just there as a wild shape machine,
like,
and it's
when they
infuriating.
first meet her, she's like, they're tearing down my whole down.
Yeah,
no
she
matter
has like
everyone
things she
I
cares
love.
about, and like she's only gonna work with them to like
Yeah.
help that, and then
But also, so here's the thing. I've said this before. I will say it again. Sophia Lillis is a great actor. She's fantastic.
Fantastic. Very good at it.
Yeah.
Very good at it.
So
Very
you're
good in I'm Not Okay With This. Like
Oh,
very
yeah.
so good. Very good actress. This, it was the writing. It was not her. I will go to my death saying that. I go to my grave.
Oh,
saying
it wasn't.
that.
No, it wasn't
No,
her.
no, yeah, she was
They
just given
didn't-
nothing. That's
she
the
didn't
big
get to
thing,
say
yeah.
anything.
Yeah. Oh my god, girl, give us nothing. Because she had to. Because she had to.
That is all they did to her.
Yeah.
Like she just.
And unfortunately, that is a recurring theme with the female characters in the film throughout. Safina is like a two-dimensional villain.
Which is funny, but
Holga has this like forced motherhood thing on her, which
Yeah.
just felt random.
best friend, mother, fighter.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
Yeah,
it
the
for
whole
her.
like. Obviously, she took in Kira and stuff. That's great, but I'm like, I feel like it was just very random, and it was like, okay,
Yeah, she just showed
It's
up
like-
conveniently.
I don't know, yeah.
Like, if, like, what if there was a fun bit where she was sent to, like, kill Edgin and she realised he was in such a terrible situation and was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do
You
that
live
now.
like this.
Oh my god. B, you live like
Please
this?
don't tell me how I live.
That would have been fun. But, yeah, alas. Anyway, we should move on.
Doric has nothing, and then like who else?
Yeah.
Who else is there? unfortunately?
So then we head, they get the team
Get
together.
Doric.
They... Oh, yeah, and
And
then
Doric-
that's when Doric goes in
Wild
undercover.
shapes to spy and
Yeah.
be like, let's look at this arcane
Okay.
vault where all the
Yeah.
treasure is.
This is one of my biggest pet peeves, which I know we've spoken about as well. So they've got it's a very fantastic scene with the watch.
Really cool.
Oh,
One
it's
of
so fun.
the best action sequences in the whole film. You have a scene in which basically Sophia Lillis' character turns into a fly so that she can basically eavesdrop on and also scout out the vault in which the tablet is being held, which they're trying to get so that they can, also get Kira and the wife and everything and whatever. So she's doing reconnaissance, she's like the spy.
Yeah.
And then there's, first of all, as a side note, there's a moment where basically Safina is like, oh my god, I can sense a wild shape around me. But she doesn't say like, there's a druid using wild shape. She's like, there's a wild shape. It's like an object.
Yeah.
Someone turned on the wild shape machine. Oh, well, sorry. Oh, it's a character. Oh, my bad. Yeah.
I'm so
Not to the
sorry. I
writers.
didn't recognize that.
Yeah. So you've got like this scene
Yeah.
where it's like,
Yeah.
oh crap, she's been discovered, and suddenly.
I don't know if she's like using detect magic or if she has true
True
sight or something.
But then I was like, if she had true
I don't
sight,
know.
she would see a girl clinging to the ceiling,
Yeah.
and so she would know that it's not. She would think
Which
there's
is,
a wild shape.
by
She
the
just doesn't look out like a dog.
By the way, they need to use that as a comedic device in a
That
film
would be so
coming
funny
up.
because if you look up
Yeah.
and then
You
they do
see
the
it
whole
through
like,
the eyes of true sight, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, like how
Hello.
strange it is. I think
So
it's fun.
so you've got this scene of like, okay, all the guards know she turns into a rat to try and you kind of see how absurdly over like leveled she is in the context of the film because she can wild shape just at will any creature.
Which is 20th level.
That's
Yeah.
a 20th level druid ability.
Including, of course, there's a hilarious thing in the stat block where it's like, so Doric can turn into any creature of CR3 or lower.
5 times.
Or an owlbear!
I'm like, what are you talking about?
Thing is, you could have like done that in a fun way, of, like you could have
Maybe
been
she
like
was raised by owlbears.
Yeah, like she had some kind of thing where like, but again, she's given nothing. There's no reason why
Given
she could do
nothing.
it. Like, why didn't they like? They could have justified it and be like, yeah, she had like some druidic like thing in the woods with an owlbear and like getting to bestow some power or something.
Yeah.
Which has this like
Just
special
doesn't get anything.
connection. Like she saved a baby owlbear.
Yeah, that would be cute. But
So,
yeah.
at the start
scene
of
is
this
great.
scene, it's a fantastic
Oh,
scene.
it's
It deserves the
so
plaudits. It's really
fun.
good.
So
It's
fun.
great set piece, really good effects, all that stuff.
Yeah.
At the start of that scene, they're like, Edgin's like, oh no, I know what we're going to do. You're going to wild shape and you're going to get the layout. And Holger tells a joke and she's like, yeah, she could turn into like a deer or something. And Edgin's like, why would there be a deer in a city? And that is all they needed to say. Okay? Bear that in mind, because they're not going to let you forget it. Right at the end of this wild shape scene, just as she's about to escape, she turns into a deer for the final run. And everyone in the crowd's like, oh, that's funny, that's good, and that's all you needed. And then it cuts back, and like the first line after it, Holger's like, so she did turn into a deer. And it's like, oh,
It's like, guys, we remembered. You didn't need to like tell us.
It's been minutes since that line. How baby brain do you think I am?
Yeah.
And there's such a recurring theme throughout this film where I genuinely think that there are some really, really funny jokes in this film.
Yeah.
I think they've got great comedic chops and they completely undermine it every chance they get because they keep just saying, look guys, the joke, do you see it? Do you want me to write it out for you? It's like, oh god.
That is like, some of the worst of like American humor. Like I think it's quite like a different thing between British and American. Like British can be too subtle. American we can sometimes be like, here's a joke, it's coming. Here's the joke. We just told a joke. Remember, like
coming up next on the joke.
Oh my god, that's
just
literally
think-
all TV. Yeah.
like just sometimes, but it's like it's a
I
shame
don't know
that
if they were like trying to
it's
like
kind of accepted.
write it out, spell it out because they wanted it to also be appealing to kids. I don't know. Well, they,
It's a
there's always that
thing.
element. Yeah.
When we went to
there's
cinema, it was full of children.
one thing I think I
Yeah,
can't
it
remember
was.
who's this isn't my point, but someone else brought it up. There's also like the foreign language aspect where they'll kind of like make it more translatable by saying the joke out loud because then it's more. I'm not really an expert on that, but like for example,
Maybe.
I know that China is an enormous market for films now,
Yeah.
so it has to be palatable for that as well. And there's just a lot of like. That is a very good example of you can feel the kind of like corporate sleaze just dangling over the plot and being like, let's just put that there and
Just
take
make
that out.
it easy and obvious and easy win.
Yeah. So yeah, that scene happens, and yeah, it's very very cool. Just to say once again, like it's done so well. That's the kind of stuff that I want to see in this film.
Yeah, that's why I was like, this is what D&D does so well. Like, this is what it feels like. Like, you really capture, like, this is amazing, like, fun heist, and this is what is so fun about Wild Shape, is, like, being on these animals, and, like, I wasn't mad that she transformed about, like, 5 times, you know? Like, I was like, I don't mind that they overpowered the druid because it just really showed off the fun of Wild Shape and what it can do, and it was way more fun that she turned into 5 different creatures than just being a rat the whole time.
Exactly.
Like, it was fun.
As I said earlier, I'm sure that for the layman, that's what people think Wild Shape is. Like, it doesn't matter about the drudgery of like, oh, sorry, unless she's level 20, then it's like, whatever.
I didn't.
You know,
And
you get the idea. It's explainable. Right,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah.
Like again about the owlbear thing, I'm like, if they just done like the tiniest bit of explanation, I wouldn't mind it because it's fun to get an owlbear in the movie because it's classic D&D and like why not? It's a fun thing to be like she's an owlbear.
Even if it was like you can turn into an owlbear and she's like I'm good at what I do.
Yeah, like
you know.
if they acknowledged it in some way, that could have been good. Yeah.
No, for sure.
Make it a joke.
Yeah,
you know, like
yeah,
just
yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of be like, oh, we know that you know, but we know as well.
So then they're sat down at a bar and they're talking about you.
So that scene also sets up one of our main obstacles
Yes.
as well, because through that perception we see that the vault itself has been locked
by Mordenkainen's arcane seal,
There it is.
or as Doric refers to it, Mordenkainen's arcane seal, which is a fun little thing. I quite like that. I think
That's
it's fun.
nice.
Basically they're all saying to Simon, like, just stop it with magic, and he's like, I can't just stop it with magic, and it's a whole thing that, like, only a super high-level sorcerer, he doesn't say that, could break through that, or if they had the Helm of Disjunction. Which is
this super rare, magical, powerful item that's
I know what that is.
lost to time.
Yeah.
I saw that in a bodega down the road.
And so he was like, oh, even if we did find that, I couldn't attune to it, so it doesn't matter. Egan pulls him aside and says, like, come on, let's just act like you can do it. Don't worry about it, because then it's going to bring down morale if you don't, if you don't act like you could attune to it.
And that is the setup for the scene that I despise in every comedy film, unfortunately, because it's used to death, of the, like, hey, I'm going to do something a little bit duplicitous, and then right around the start of the third act, we're all going to have a big fight, and like,
about
will we ever...
really matter.
Oh no, it was a miscommunication, and will we become friends again? Yeah, we will. 10 minutes later, and then the film will end.
Yeah.
You've got to have a 3-act structure. You've got to have the lowest low to have the highest high.
Yes, but it's like, always the same lowest low is my problem.
They could have done something slightly different.
A little bit different. They come back to the table, and Holger is very conveniently like, I know about the Helm of Disjunction. My people went to war over it, like, 100 years ago. And they're like,
okay.
How are we going to talk to anyone from 100 years ago, Holger?
Oh, I happen to have a speak
but then it's quite funny, because Holger's like, do it with magic. And he's like, well, I can't actually do it with magic this time. Yeah. He has, like, a little token that allows him to use the Speak with Dead spell, unlimited amount of times.
Yeah, she's got that.
She's got it.
This guy who the whole setup for his character is that he's the crappiest sorcerer on Earth.
Yeah.
Just happens to have this insanely powerful item. It's like, it's a recurring theme that really got on my tits a little bit.
So then they decide, okay, we'll go and we'll do that. I think that's when it skips back to, I'm trying to remember beat for beat, but it skips back to skips back to Safina in the castle in Neverwinter.
Oh yeah, she has her whole, like...
She has a talk.
The real villain.
Yeah.
Who never comes back up.
So this was my thing. I was like, okay, is she like kind of like warlocky, and she's got like a patron? Because that would make sense to me that she was trying to do this for the patron.
So what I think is happening there is she is part of a greater evil of Red Wizards.
Yeah.
That was like her leader, and what they're doing there is they're setting up things for other films. So I think that's like, oh, what's Hydra? Or whatever, some crap like that from Marvel, where it's like, oh, who's this interesting character? You'll have to find out in the next Dungeons and Dragons film.
I hate that, because I'm like, I feel like it needs to stand on its own. And because I felt with the Red Wizard stuff, I was like, I kind of felt like I needed to know what D&D Red Wizards were.
It really assumed a lot of knowledge on that.
What? Yeah. I was like, why? Like, why have you... if you're trying to pick something that you feel needs loads of setup, and you're not going to give it to me, why are you not picking more easy?
Blue Wizards are good and Red Wizards are bad, gang. Like, so simple.
There's a scene...
Yeah, I was a bit like, okay.
There's a scene with Zank, sorry.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, he's from Thay. And I was like, what? Because again, I didn't know what a Red Wizard was, and I obviously didn't hear them say Thay.
Also,
I was too. Yeah, exactly. I was too busy focusing on the fact that they said Red Wizard, which is the bit that you actually hear, not like, oh, it's a Red Wizard from Armadillo or whatever.
And again,
like I don't focus on Armadillo because it's just fantasy.
I have played like hundreds of hours of D&D probably at this point, but I don't know much about the Forgotten Realms. Like,
never heard of Thay.
Yeah, like I don't know. It just seems like so even for like diehard D&D fans, and a lot of them are not playing in the Forgotten Realms, are playing their own stuff. So I think it's not like a really obvious thing. Like an owlbear, we all recognise an owlbear. That's fine. Like I was like, I don't know, like I just wasn't keeping up quick enough or something. But I was like, did they say stuff I missed? Like,
and you also have. I think this actually happens later in the film, but just for the sake of brevity, there's a scene where they kind of describe who the Red Wizards are. I think this is Zank again, who's explaining it to them. But they're like, here's who the Red Wizards are, here's what they want, and like they give this whole thing of like, oh, I was a kid there, so I used to be in Thay, and in Thay they used this big magical horn to turn us all into zombies, and it was horrible, but I managed to escape, and like, oh, now like, thankfully Red Wizards are not around, and we don't have to be worried about them, but we're always ready, and all that kind of stuff. And it was just like, I don't really know what they're trying to accomplish, to be honest.
Also there was like they were like, oh, Red Wizards and the power doesn't come out outside of Thay, and I'm like, why not? Why doesn't it extend past Thay?
Again, it's like, so we have meant to have played an adventure with Red Wizards to understand this bit of the movie.
It was really odd. It was, given how everything else was so clear. Yeah. It was such a weird, like, oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
It was like watching, like, a children's TV program, and then they're like, and we all know how trigonometry works, so moving on. And it was like, whoa, hold on, what?
That might have happened before, because then it goes into the vault thing, but there is another scene that cuts away too, where, because I find this scene so funny every time, you have Safina stood there with a bunch of guards looking evil as hell, watching as another extremely evil man approaches on a boat. Just like,
that's fun.
It's like, what is, no one's looking at this.
Oh my god, yeah. Is that the assassin?
Yeah, the assassin guy.
And everyone's just like, you got the painters in or something?
Yeah, like...
I thought that was fun. Wild. I didn't mind it. I just thought it was fun.
Yeah.
So they go to the site of the battlefield.
Yes,
they have a very funny sequence in which they're talking with the dead.
Yeah.
You've probably seen the trailer. They mess it up, and it's the classic thing of like, was that a question? Yes. And he dies, and all that. It's like, oh crap, here we go. Mm-hmm. So they spend hours and hours. They do a montage of them digging things up and all that stuff, and they do that classic thing of like, oh, we got the information for this guy. We've got 2 other questions. He'll be fine. And they're just like, oh, you're gonna leave me here and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of fun. He gets a little callback after the credits as well.
Yeah, and credits.
But that then leads them to the next path on it, and it's like, it's very sort of like, now we've got to do this. Now we got to, and there's like there's a classic bit of writing advice, which sort of a lot of scriptwriters use, where it's like, if you write out the plot points of your film, and in between all of those plot points it says, and then, you've not written a story, you've written a list of plot points. It has to be, well, not has to be, but like, you know, great stories are usually, this happens, and then because of that, this happens, which forces them into this, which then makes it really uncomfortable for them to have to do this, and it's like, there's no real kind of through line. It's all such a like, well, now we have to get the helmet. Now we have, oh, what? Oh, we found the stuff.
That's
now
why
we got
I feel
this.
like they
now
could
we
have just
dragon.
cut out one of those heists, because like, really, in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of just killing time, and they don't have much time to kill because they already don't have enough time. It's like, okay, like, it's
slightly baffling
and annoying, because like, there was fun things in there, like obviously, like, you know, there was the chonky dragon, which some people loved and some people hated.
I didn't hate him. I was just like, whatever.
I love him.
But like, there's some fun things, but it's just it's annoying.
And it also means that because they were so like shotgun to everything, you also didn't really get to explore any of them. So it was like, it's like, oh my god, we're going to the Underdark, because they know that people would have been like, whoa, the Underdark, and then you don't really explore that as a thing. Like,
it's not very Underdarky, I'll be
honest.
It's just lava.
I know.
I thought the Underdark was like drow and
like
spiders and mushrooms.
Yeah, I was like, this is not
which
the Underdark.
To be honest, you see in Baldur's Gate 3's like pre-access thing, which everyone has recently played.
Underdark they go to is like, it's all lava. Like, I'm like, this is like a layer of hell.
Exactly what I was thinking. Like, it's just the first layer of the first ring of hell.
Or like a dwarven forge place or something.
Yeah.
We didn't read Underdark at all.
So again, like, so if you're like, well, we really want to show this as D&D, like, you also weren't giving us D&D fans what we were expecting from it. So I'm like, I'm really not quite sure why they needed to put it in and what they were doing. Like, so they put a dragon, which apparently is like in an adventure or something. And I'm like, okay. That's going to appeal to a lot less people than being like, look at the cool mushrooms and the drow, and like this cool, interesting elven underground cities, like.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will hear these comments and they'll be like, yeah, well, it was just like a funny comedy movie, like it doesn't have to be great writing, and it's just like, but there are plenty of other examples of films like this. Paddington 2, which Hugh Grant plays the exact same character in, is fantastic and has that same thing. I'll also point out, if you've watched The Nice Guys, that's a really, really funny, like, sort of like uncovering a mystery buddy cop film, which has like a really fun plot, but it's just a dumb comedy, and it can still have like elements of, you know, like, it can still have interesting plot beats.
I really hate when people are like, genre stuff doesn't need to be well written, because I'm like, that's not true. No. Like, genre stuff often is incredibly well written, is like also the way we explore quite like topical things a lot of the time. Like, it is, you know, like, there's a whole conversation on horror around that and stuff, and it's like, I think that's, you know, comedy should be well written. Like, it's...
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't get a write-off just because it's comedy.
Yeah, like, comedy,
Or
you can't just be joke. You need a story, and then, like, the jokes are in there, and they feel relevant to make it genuinely funny.
I think it's also quite good to say that I think we're the whole spectrum of people who have seen this movie. I really enjoyed it. Maddie, you enjoyed it, but the sparkle of D&D's gone a little bit for
like,
you.
I mean, I was, like, going into this, and I think a bit like both me and you said, I had really low expectations.
Yes.
I was, like, really not getting my hopes up for it. Like, I saw the trailers, and I was like, okay, I guess it's just Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And I went in, and I was like, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun, and, like, I would happily watch it again. And, like I said to my friends, I'm like, yeah, you should go see it. Like, I enjoyed it, you know.
And then Wheels, you didn't like it, and you don't really like D&D
No,
that much.
I will say that I don't think anyone on the team, apart from maybe Alex and me, who was quite critical of it, was even Matt. We recently got his thoughts on it.
Like,
we were all like, yeah, it was pretty fun.
Good,
like,
yeah.
I didn't have a bad time. I thought it was
And
alright.
this is why I'm trying to say, like, it's a safe first like, I understand it's the first thing, and, like, as we're saying, like, this is, I think, every time we give a negative, we also give a caveat, and we're like, I think this is why they were doing that. Like, it's not like, this was so stupid, why did they do that? Like, I think there's a lot of things I didn't like, and I understand why they did it. Yeah, like, I just, you know.
We thought this was going to be a short stream.
Yeah.
It's only half four.
Well, we really don't know ourselves.
So yeah,
So yeah,
this will be long.
let's move this along. Okay,
They meet Zenk. They meet Zenk, and he pulls out a baby tabaxi out of a big fish, and the tabaxi is bad.
Awful.
I saw there's a behind the scenes of the robot inner workings, and it moves better. And I guess when they put the fur on, it doesn't translate as well.
Gross. But there's also like I've seen the like actress who played the tabaxi mum being like, oh, this is so exciting. I think you did great with what you had. But like the fursuit was like wild. It was
Yeah, it was such and like when we were in the screening, I felt everyone just go like, oh, what is that? Because it's so weird. Because the Dragon Ball looked great, the Aarakocra looked great, the dwarves looked good, the halflings looked awful. But like it's that kind of like weird thing where it's like everything else looks so nice. It really stood out.
Every next time I've seen it, like when I saw it the second time, I turned to Mark, who was next to me, and I was like, wait. And then the third time I went to you, and I was like, oh, it was so much. It was a lot.
Oh, great.
So it's bad. And
the Tabaxi baby is being saved by Zang to set him up to be like, look at this amazing,
So this is
lovely paladin.
This is Reggae. Did you say Reggae Jean Page?
I believe it's Reggae John Page. Yes.
John Page.
Yeah.
Reggae John Page, who is, if you don't know him, he's from Bridgeton, things like that. He's like a classic.
Your mum loves him.
Yeah, he's such a nice young man.
Oh, he's such a nice young man.
He's handsome, and he plays that up in his role. It's kind of like
plays his role well.
Kind of like I've forgotten his name, but the main antagonist in Knives Out, Glass Onion, where he's playing a hyper real version of himself as like a poke of comedy at himself, I think. But it's got that element of like, yeah, he's a paladin, and oh boy, do you know it?
Yeah,
because he's like, and he has a lot of jokes that I felt were a bit lifted from Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, where it's like, hey, I don't use sarcasm and things like that. I take you at face value no matter what you say, all that kind of stuff.
Some of my favourite ones were just like, wow, Forge is a real son of a bitch. And then he's like, oh, you blame his mother for his transgressions, which was very good. There was also just like, Simon was like, I'm being ironic, and he's like, I find irony is the sword that cuts the one who wields it the most.
I personally thought the delivery on some of those were a little bit.
I loved his delivery. I thought he did really well. I thought his comedic bits were maybe not as good as That's baffling to me.
That's my opinion.
I think he did it really well. I think he like played the straight man well, but then also it was super funny. Extended out from that, I thought it was really good.
I really liked his character. I do think like a bit I was like, yeah, it's Drax. We've seen this before, and like because I think the two lines you said I think were slightly different and kind of fun. Whereas like I think there was some that was like I was like, is this just a deleted scene from Guardians of the Galaxy? Drax saying it like. You know, so like, but I generally liked his character, and I think it was fun.
So then he tells them about the whole thing that we discussed earlier with the Red Wizards and Fae and blah blah.
The backstory plot, MacGuffin, which again, classic D&D, like, oh, there's the character who gives you all the exposition, you know,
Everyone in this film gets like a kind of a backstory, except for most of the women in the film.
Does Holga have, apart from an ex-boyfriend, does Holga have any kind of backstory whatsoever?
No, I mean, the dead people they resurrect, but again, I'm like, I don't know, there was
and then it's just sort of like, my people. You know, it's not like a sort of...
I left my people to be with you. It's like, what about, I want to see that. How did that go down?
Yeah.
Like,
it's not like with... Zank, where it's like, oh, Faye, you know, where the villains
entire
are from.
childhood, and like I understand its relevance to the plot, but I'm like,
you're an
where
NPC.
is this
What is happening?
Yeah. Like, where is anything
he's
about
a side
her?
character. Like, he's not a main character.
No, even though the posters would have you believe he's a main character.
Built him
I was confused by that.
Yeah.
I was like, why is he not joining, you know, the crew?
Yeah.
Like, why isn't he part of the heist? But he's just...
Because he's too overpowered.
Yeah.
Which is fun. I'm glad they don't join him in the heist, but I think marketing lies a little bit on it.
Yeah. Bit of a lie. They go down to the Underdark to look for the helm, and there's a fun little scene where he's like, "Oh, intellect devourers! They attack people with high intelligence,
That
and
was
they just
a good
walk.
joke.
They just walk straight past them, and they're like, oh."
They're like, well, that's hurtful. You know, like,
That was fun.
Yeah, that's a good joke.
None of them were intelligence people, so it's
exactly. That's why Simon can be a wizard. But yes, they head down to the Hanging City. There's also a very fun joke. I loved it when they have to get across a bridge that's trapped.
I hate this.
I love it. It's so funny. Where Zenga's like, it's a really simple mechanism. First you must take a step to the right and then go to the middle and must be equidistant from the person behind you, and like just rambles on and on and on. So the bit where like Simon steps on it and then like just immediately brings it down, I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. But the fact that he was rambling on and on, that's what I thought was really funny. So
again, I feel like puzzles in D&D are such a hard balance to do. Like, they often seem way more complex than they should, or like you have to really oversimplify them and stuff like that. So I thought that was quite fun. I was like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Being there, my friend.
So they destroy the bridge accidentally to get across the thing, and they're trying to figure out how to get across. This is the bit that you said with the hither thither staff.
Yeah, which is what the beer's named after.
Yeah. So Holger was like, this is a walking stick, and she went to see her ex, which was also quite a funny scene. It was just Bradley Cooper randomly, and
he's tiny.
He's
not a halfling. He's just shrunken down. Like he's in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
He's just far away.
It should have been such an enjoyable scene, but I couldn't concentrate because I was like, why does he look like that? Why does he look like that? Why is
Honestly,
and then also one of the funniest bits of Holger's character is there's a great scene at the end which we both cracked up at, where they're sort of like after they've got their big victory and they're getting their medals for being great heroes, and a halfling passes Holger's one. She's like, it's so funny.
Really good.
It's really funny, but it's genuinely spoiled by a terrible effect.
But also like that, because so for me, it wasn't sort of a heartwarming scene for me. It was just super funny seeing a completely earnest delivery from Bradley Cooper, just like, she doesn't keep me awake in the small hours, weeping, wondering where she is. Like, this is wild. It's just so funny.
Yeah, he's playing completely straight. And
it's very funny. So for me, the weird sizing thing wasn't a problem, because I was like, what am
I really love that scene. I thought that it was really funny.
Yeah.
Like, I just wish
it's just a very it's a choice, you know.
Yeah.
It's a choice.
And then his new girlfriend comes in and she just looks exactly like Holger. But they both have a time. Yeah, she's just bigger and doesn't run away. So then she takes the walking stick, which turns out to be the hither thither staff, which is just a portal gun.
I thought it was it's not a real thing, is it?
I think
they made it up,
is.
because I tried to find it and it's only available on the Honor Among Thieves wiki.
Yeah.
It's not a spell that you can do in D&D.
They've completely made it up. They have released like supplement stuff where it's like, hey, you want to use the stuff from the spell? And I wonder if that was kind of the point where it's like, oh, we can release it as content for people.
Yeah.
But it was just so convenient.
It's so convenient, very overpowered.
Oh yeah,
that's why it's not a spell in D&D.
It's
so easy.
Yeah, it completely breaks most modules. I would imagine.
Because like Arcane Gate, where you open a gate, so like a bit like you could walk through a portal, is to another plane first of all, so you can't just do it somewhere else. Like, and like that is like a 8th level spell.
You have Dimension Door, but like that's like a very high level spell, and like you can only take 2 people with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Also,
like you can't just open a thing and you can just walk to as many times as you want. Like,
again, the convenience. Again, he's like, not only is he like, that's not a walking stick, that's a hither and thither staff. He knows it perfectly. He knows the exact amount of feet that you can do it with and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't know if it was meant to be like a sort of I'm the guy who's read every single book joke or whatever.
But that's not what sorcerers are. They're not high intelligence casters.
No, I mean meta, as in like I'm the player with all the meta knowledge.
Sure.
I know all the feet and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that's what they were going for, but it just all the time it was just like. Yeah, I guess, guys. And then just skip the scene. Let's go through it.
I think I think a bit like it's the meta player, and I was like, almost it's fun, it works. But again, firstly, it's not a classic D&D magic item.
Yeah.
Which if you're gonna make that meta joke, I think it should be something that we all know, because it would be like, oh, I know that. It's the blah 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 blah, and like kind of call us out.
It's the classic thing that people push their. Like, do you remember when we were playing? This I don't think this made the edit, but we were playing in Storybreakers, and someone tries to use a spell, and you both at the same time were like, actually, that's got a semantic component, so you have to be talking.
It had verbal, semantic, and material components.
I'm sorry that I'm playing the game correctly.
But no, but that would have been a perfect example of that, where if he would just gone, actually, that's a semantic spell. So
because it's fun, because it calls us out as the D&D nerds and stuff, but it's not a classic magic item. It's so random.
Carrie, I should have had disadvantage in that scene, is all I'm saying. But whatever.
Yeah, that's the kind of DM I
am. So they get across and they get the helm. There's a whole thing where it's like, look after this with your life, and then Edgin's like, okay, take this, whoop, and just yeets it away. And then one of my favorite bits is that Zank is just stood there and he just sniffs twice, like, there is evil here.
Yeah,
it's good.
Because again, it's fun, like, being like, how does divine sense work? Like, what does that look like?
It's
I feel like I should have liked Zank more because he's Robert O'Cobb.
Yeah, he is.
And he just didn't resonate with me.
Maybe if you saw it again, I don't know.
Maybe
you saw it for the third time. Liv is really fun.
Maybe you develop a film Stockholm syndrome.
I'm probably gonna see it a full time with Chloe, and I'm gonna be like,
she's knee slapping throughout the whole thing.
I was ready to go and see it again because I was like, oh, then we should go see it. He was like. I was like, maybe I'll just go see it again. Maybe I'll just go by myself.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go with Liv and Chloe.
Yeah, do it. We can hide Biscuit in one of our jumpers that we pick.
By Ada.
So then, then the assassin guy turns up with a bunch of people. They're undead.
There's another scene of one person fighting.
Yes,
I'm like, nah. There should have been people should have all joined.
Yeah, and he literally goes, "I'll handle this," and then he gets stabbed.
Yeah,
and that is just, and it's whatever. And it's like, why did you? It's like they're just throwing Chekhov's guns around and then just forgetting about them. And it's like they had this whole thing of like, oh my god, he's been stabbed, like, because they do that with Holger as well at the end.
Yeah.
You know, spoiler alert, but like she gets stabbed and it's like, oh my god, that's a red wizard's blade or whatever. Yeah. And they make such a point of showing it. They're like, oh my god, it went between his ribs, he's gonna be really injured. And then it's just like, right, cool, should we go?
I have no recollection of that.
It's just, it's infuriating. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, that's a classic example where they could have all come together and all fought together because no one's like with their hands tied up, no one's doing anything else. It's not like they're low-level guards.
You also had that as a really good excuse of like, you know, he's being too brave and paladin-like, and then he actually gets hurt, and they're like, no, we can't let this happen. And he then has to go, okay, I'm sorry, I tried to show off or whatever, you know. Yeah.
So then they run away from the undead people, and Chubby Dragon arrives, and he's a big guy, and he comes and he rolls down the hill, and it's very good.
He's like, this isn't what a normal dragon looks like. Haha, it's different.
It's I like him. He's chunky. And then he eats all the undead guys, so that gets rid of them.
Yeah,
it's fun.
That's dealt with. Oh, he happens to blow up or whatever. I don't know. There's just so many little things where it's like, oh, that'll do, you know.
Yeah, they blow him up, and then basically Edgin comes up with a plan to blow him up, and then it's like, wow, you're dusting off your slumber, you're a hopper again. And
it's annoying as well with, just for like a D&D thing. So obviously, like, when you're trying to balance an encounter, if you have one big enemy, you often have lots of little enemies to try and like balance it out challenge rating wise. So it would have been a fun thing to be like, there's the undead, but also they've got a big dragon, and it's like, like they're trying to balance it, like, and like, you know. I do that as a DM. Haha, I do that.
I do that.
Yeah, that was me.
But also, I think if they were going to be true to the D&D experience, they should have had this really good idea about how they're going to explode the dragon, and then it just doesn't work. Because that's every D&D game I've ever played. It's like, oh, I didn't roll it. Oh well, okay, move on.
That's true. So after they get out, that's when they get on the beach.
Yeah, and Zank walks away forever.
Zank walks away, and it's so good. I love it. And then also throughout that whole scene, after he walks away, he's still going. The whole time he's still going.
Yeah.
It's very good. Then that's when the just before Act 3 thing happens, when they all get into a fight. Also Simon tries to attune to his helmet.
Yeah,
and
because Simon gets a storyline.
Yes,
Simon
he
gets
does.
a storyline.
Simon gets a storyline because
Yeah.
he's not a woman. So then they show it in a very fun way where they he has to speak to someone from his family,
an ancestor, right?
An ancestor.
Yeah, who's I think they're setting up that he was a proper wizard.
Yes,
rather than
yeah,
just
Yeah, because he's the
right?
son of
yeah.
wizards.
They
Yeah.
roll
right?
wizards. He's the first sorcerer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Which is a fun dynamic.
Yeah, that's a fun story.
It's a Terry Pratchett book. It's
Yeah.
a fun dynamic.
Yeah.
He's got to run a post office.
So he kind of tuned to it, and he's like, "Oh, I told you I wouldn't be able to attune to it, but Edgin said I shouldn't tell you guys." Blah blah.
And there it is. It's our third act low point.
And then
do you know
everyone
how
kicks
long it
off.
lasts? 5 seconds. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't believe in this anymore. Actually, do you know what? It's probably fine.
Again, the way you would have done that is that they're all like, it won't work, and they all go back to their own things, and then they all have their reasons for wanting to come back together, and we could have had like why Doric goes back, and it's like there's even more trees burned because that's what she cares about, I guess. All we know about her.
There's more trees.
There could have been a moment where Holger's like, oh, actually, I really care about Kira, so like,
Yeah.
then that sets up the whole thing of she's more like a mother or whatever that they're
Yeah,
trying to
that
do.
would have been good.
There's so many
characters.
Yeah,
things,
so
you
many
know?
bits where it's like I'm sick of that trope. I'm sick of that plot device, but they didn't even bother to do it properly.
Yeah.
They didn't.
If you're
Which
gonna
is really
miscommunicate, you
annoying.
need to miscommunicate properly and get
Yeah.
everyone to like not talk to each other anymore, and then they have to work together, and you're like, how are they ever going to come back together? 'Cause they
Honestly,
think this and this and
that's
this.
a trope I do love when everyone's like, I hate this. Like I think it was...
Here's the
it's done-
last bit of a phone conversation you hear out
like,
of context, and it's like, no, you
I don't have feelings for Christine Orr.
A good example of this, Scooby-Doo monsters. Right? At the very start, they're like, whoa, the Coolsville song.
You're gonna film me saying something like, I think Coolsville sucks.
And then they all split up and then they come back together for this thing. It was great.
Yeah.
Great. Could have learned a lot. They should have just tried to copy Scooby-Doo.
Now that would have been a better film.
But then, so also there's like a scene where Edgar has a dream and somebody on TikTok did this really well. Before I saw this film, she was like, POV, I'm your dead wife and like you're remembering
Oh
me.
my
And
god,
she's like,
yeah.
and she's just like a glowing
Under the
light and she's under the
sheets.
sheets. And that exact shot is in this film. It's very good.
Yeah.
And then she's like, he tries to capture a
footage.
dragon. Trying to capture a dragonfly, and she's like, "Just let it go." And we're like, we all know that's gonna come back, and later on.
Because
in
we've
the
seen the
film.
dragonfly multiple times, and it's like, okay.
Yeah. Okay,
It's
dragonflies.
like, wow, it's a really clever device he's using.
Wow.
Puffle Master says, I thought the wizard Simon saw when attuning was the manifestation of his self-doubt. It is.
It is.
But it's manifesting in the way of his family who don't respect him in his mind.
So that's his self-doubt.
And I
saying,
think,
like,
and then
I'm
when it
terrible,
was
my
revealed
family's
it's
great.
just him, I was like,
That was so bad.
It was, yeah.
it
bad.
sucks.
Again, for anyone who's not seen it, there's like a scene where it's like, ah, yes, the strength was inside you all along, Simon. Look, I'm you. It's like, okay, all right.
He punches him in the face and he turns around and like, took you long enough, and I'm there like, what are you doing?
I hated it.
That
Why
was
did you
bad.
We all know.
Why did you just cold-handed strangle him? And then he's lying dead on the ground. He's like, you can't stop me now. That would be much
This
better.
is why Maddie should write it.
So I'm a writer.
I'll be in the
I
fanfiction.
I love the idea. I love the idea that like the message from that scene is, look, we all have it in us. All we have to do is
Except
go inside
Doric.
our mind palace and punch
our
ourselves in the face. But we're being disguised as our own
It just
ancestors.
doesn't
Doesn't
pay
hit.
off at all in
No.
any of the ways they want it to.
And
Sucks.
it happens in a few seconds, and he has to do it because it's
Yeah.
the only time he can do it.
Stupid.
And it's that classic thing of like, oh well done. Like you've not really had
Yay.
any kind of character development that's led you to this point, but because we need the plot to advance, you now believe in yourself.
You can just
Thanks.
do it.
Yeah.
So after they all come together from the third act fall or whatever, they do another heist, where they put the portal they used to hit the stuff on a painting, and they put that inside of a convoy that's heading with a bunch of treasure into the palace. And then they're like, we can use that to get through. It's the way it's all done. This whole scene is very good. It's very funny.
It was a fun heist idea. I like it. It feels very like D&D. I'm like, I can see us players coming up with that idea, and I'm like, I think it's fun. It's like kind of
They
out of the
rolled
box.
a
Like,
bunch of nat 20s for this, like for sure. You know, like it's really good. And then they do all of that.
Liv, can I please stop you for 1 second?
Yes.
Callum Drummond would like me to do a Robocop voice because I talked about him, and will say that Breakwest Club is on the way back. It's coming back.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
And he would like me to say evil levels at 1.4%. So that we can
Very good.
He can smell crime. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, so basically, they go through all of that, and then they're like, oh, here we go, and the picture that they put the portal on fell on the ground, so they can't get through, and it's like, oh. So then, so Doric's trying to, like, chisel her way in.
First time the plot has been inconvenient to them.
Doric's like, if I can turn into a worm, and chisel my way through, I can maybe get in there, and then the other three are like, okay, we're gonna go try and get inside another way, so I'm just gonna attune to the helmet. Then that's the body horror scene.
Oh, yeah.
Where Simon casts Major Illusion, and Edgin's like, do, like comes in playing the lute.
And all the cards are like, what's going on here? And they're like, wow, he's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I actually really like this, because he gets his foot stuck, and he loses his concentration, which we don't really see. And it morphs into this horrible, bloated version, because he's not concentrating. And it's genuinely horrific.
It's honestly scarred me for life.
There's a weird amount of body horror in this film. Just pointing that out for anyone who brings their children.
It's a 12A, remember
that. A 12A.
Accompanied by an adult.
One brief aside as well from the comments, just so we've got the chat involved. Puffermaster says, I'm basic, I enjoyed the dragonfly being symbolic of her.
Yeah.
I think it's fine as a thing. One thing that made me a little bit roll my eyes at it is because she's not a real character.
No.
She's the dead wife.
She's the dead wife. So it's like, yeah, cool. Had she been in the first half of the film and gotten a moment to establish that outside of just convenient flashbacks when you need to establish something about her, and it had been a real thing that happened that we can call back to, that the audience were privy to as well, I think it would have landed a lot better. But because it's very much remember me,
and also
Edgin, I'm your dead wife.
I kind of hate it being I'm a beautiful. This beautiful object reminds you of me, this beautiful little thing. I just think like that.
Possum.
It's just something, anything more interesting than it's it's delicate and pretty she was, and I understand it's more the scene. And I understand the scene when he wasn't gonna kill it, but I just think if it was I don't know, just a spider or something, it would be more interesting.
Doric, you turned into a little raccoon. Oh my god, it reminds me of my wife.
Doric, what are you doing? Doric, stop! My wife was an owlbear.
So different, you and I.
So
yeah,
right. And then this is and again they add another plot point here as well, because so you've got your heist. They've got their plan. Hey, we're going to teleport in. And then they're like, okay, the teleport's not working, we need another plan, so they go and try something else, and Doric's like, just leave me with it, I reckon I can grind through.
I can worm my way in,
literally. And they end up both succeeding at the same time, because Simon has his moment and managed to get rid of Mordekainen's thing, whereas she managed to crawl through just as the person from the first scene recognizes them, and she's like, I'm going to call that in. She's a dwarf. And as she moves in, they're like, oh, what the hell? I swear there was someone in here. There's just an empty picture frame. They, they got it at the last moment. It's a fun scene. And then she's like, hold on a minute. I'm not in the vault. And that's when it reveals this whole thing, which we've not talked about at all, by the way. Neverwinter sort of festival, which...
Oh, yeah, the Heists games.
Yeah, he becomes the Lord of Neverwinter. He brings back this really dangerous, Colosseum-style thing.
The previous Lord who fell ill was like, these are too harsh, we're not doing these anymore.
Yeah, we need to get rid of this. This is bad. So, they have this whole thing where it's why the hell are they doing these games? Why is he Lord Neverwinter? And then you finally find out with this moment, obviously you probably could tell if you have watched any films, but that's the reveal in the film of, he's stealing all of the bets that people have put on this. He doesn't have a grand sealed vault with Mordekainen's thing or whatever. It's an empty room because they've nicked all the gold, and as the big bad evil character is going to do her secret plot, Forge is just going to piss off with all of his wealth. And that's that's what he's been up to this whole time.
And Safina's been using him as the face so that she can get all these people together in one place.
And he knows that something bad's going to happen, and that's why he's like, I'm going to skip town with Kira, but as long as I get my gold, because I'm a con man, I don't mind.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why he brings Kira, when he establishes at the end that he doesn't actually care about her.
Well, I think that he, because at the start, actually, he refers to Kira, because he's like, oh, it's fun being a dad. It's like you get to shape someone in your image. It's like being a god.
Yeah.
So he, which is weird.
I really love that. Like, it's like his little...
It's like being a god!
What? It's like his little pet project thing.
Yeah, okay.
And, like,
he sees it as fun.
Yeah.
And I guess, like, as well, like, it's the one child he knows and, like, has a connection to, so, like, having to kill a child, I guess, like, he's not outright evil, he's just, like, he's selfish.
Yeah.
So I think, like, that's
he's a
fair
narcissist.
enough. Yeah,
essentially.
exactly.
Yeah.
So he's like,
They have a very, very funny recurring gag where his face is just plastered over everything in the city.
Yeah.
Right at the end, they use the Hither Tither staff to sort of like get rid of all the gold as a distraction.
Yeah.
And they cast the portal onto his mouth on an air balloon,
Yeah.
just vomiting gold on the city, which is really funny. It's a really
good.
good visual gag.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell us what was happening right after, which is great. They didn't go, oh, it looks like he's sicking gold, which is why it flipping landed better.
He spits up on himself with gold.
Oh my god, bits and bars!
He was sick on his shores.
He's bringing us bits and bobs. That would have been great.
He's giving us bits and
bobs.
That would be fun.
That would have been great.
Yeah, and then Sophia. One thing I'll point out. I know we're running out of time. So Sophia is like stood in the corner of the room, just like.
Like, all these people like doing bets and stuff and like chatting.
And they literally, the one guy's literally like, stop that! What's stopping you, right?
So they've got, to set that up, they've brought in all of these wealthy nobles who are doing all the bets.
Yeah.
They've got it's a weirdly like high-tech Colosseum. They've got like a floor that is made out of
Rippling and
huge like
blocks.
columns that can go up and down.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's magic or if it's like sort of steampunky tech or
It's
something.
just like mechanical.
They
It's very
convinced them.
strange.
They convinced them to put them in the games, by the way. But just that's because Sophia's like, cool, more bodies to corrupt, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
Well, so they have this scene where, like, Doric has just realised, oh my god, this is all a scam, but I need to tell them using my telling stone thing that they set up as well.
Yeah.
Or whisper, I don't know what it's called.
Sending stone.
Sending stone, thank
Yeah.
you. And they're not really listening, I think, because Egan is like, okay, time to find Kira. He finds Kira. He gives he's like, he finally actually says, you know what? I was selfish. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't just about your mum. I did want all the money. I admit to you that I've been a bad person. I hope I can heal our
Well,
relationship.
it's not about the money. It's like,
No.
it wasn't your mum, it was my wife. I was
which I think
back.
is a really good line.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
it was
yeah.
a really good way of
Yeah.
showing that, like, yeah, it was selfish to do that because, you know, it was less about the daughter and more about his personal feelings.
Yeah.
And this whole time I've been playing it up like it was for us, but no, it was
It
for
wasn't
me.
me.
Yeah.
She missed your
know.
mum. You never
Yeah.
met her.
Holga is her mum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as she knows.
Yeah. And then also there's a fun scene where Safina's casted Alter Self, and Safina was
That's that scene.
Yeah.
Safina was the
So
girl.
he does this whole big, his emotional, like, you
And
know,
she's like,
moment.
evil woman the whole time! Now you're covered in tentacles!
And then also he says, at the end he's like, I gave this whole big speech to you, but it wasn't you, but I'm not repeating it. And it's like,
I'm like, okay.
what?
But she's still like, I love you now.
So
It's
stupid.
very
Okay.
weird. But yeah, so you've got that thing, and then
Yeah.
like he gets captured, and that's where Forge reveals like,
whole
it's
thing.
like it's like being a god, all that kind of stuff.
That was the start.
Huh?
That was at the start.
Was that the start?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
whatever. Yeah, he's like,
Yeah.
I'm out. See you
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
Enjoy being crushed as a tentacle. And then Eggin, this was a really dumb plot point. Eggin is then like, oh,
Give us a fighting chance.
at least give us a fighting chance. Put us in the games, and they're like, there's no way you'll survive the game. Just kill him. Just kill him.
Yeah.
It's that classic
And,
of
like,
like there was
but-
absolutely no
And
reason.
I feel like you could have done a Bardi thing where it's like he managed to roll a nat 20 on something so unbelievable because it's like a classic like a D&D. I can see as a D&D character you'd be like, give us a fighting chance or whatever, and it's like oh, you know, like if you roll a charisma check or whatever, like persuasion check, and like
And
you
then he gets a natural 20 for a 28, and you're like, okay. Well,
yeah, like you could have framed it as some kind of like, I don't know, it was like kind of like, oh yeah, sure, and it's like
you can visualize that as well. They
Yeah.
put it in the film as if it was like, yeah, no, he's right. You know, like,
And it's
yeah,
like,
he's making perfect
okay.
sense, which he wasn't.
Yeah.
Whereas if they'd gone like, if the evil person was like, oh, shut up, and then
Yeah.
unfortunately went, yeah, go on then, or something like that, and was just
Yeah.
like completely out of nowhere, and then it was very clear what they were doing.
Or
like,
if even
he rolled on that
if
20.
even
Yeah.
Safina was kind of like, I don't know why, but I agree with you.
Yeah,
exactly.
there's something about you, Bard.
Acknowledge it, and
they're compelling. So then they do that. They get out. There's a nod to the D&D cartoon.
It's one of the other like groups of heroes who have
Yes.
signed up for the games.
Yeah.
So the whole point of the games is it turns into like this twisting maze. So the reason they've got these columns is because it can turn into like a grid-based maze thing. It's full of chests because you go in without any equipment. And you're also wearing anti-magic
If
things.
you have magic, you have anti-magic.
Yeah,
stuff,
so it's like a sort of, and they don't give everyone. So it's like, oh, okay, you have to be a warrior, right? Basically, it's like, how good are you without all your spells and stuff? And as you go through the maze, you find chests that have weapons, and the whole point is they unleash all of the classic D&D monsters because you've got to get them in. So you've got Displacer Beasts, you've got gelatinous cubes,
the chests are mimics,
all that kind of stuff, and like, and it's a relatively fun scene, and like they're kind of going through, and then you've kind of like in the games, the goal is to get to this cage that will protect you from the monsters. But they soon realise that they are not equipped to do this, and also they're just biding their time until, even if they won, they'd probably get killed anyway. So they have to hatch a plan, and the very weird plan that they get...
Yeah, there's no way if I was playing a game I would ever jump to that conclusion that I have to go into the cube.
Oh,
there's
this
no
is so dumb. Okay,
Yeah.
so they have a scene where there's a gelatinous cube, and they establish it. There's the Chekhov's gun. And the way they establish that is by going, oh my god, it is burning my skin off just by touching this thing. And they're like, okay, that's dangerous.
And after like a minute of like scene time, you see the person who had fallen in first is like just like a skeleton, basically.
So then
Kills you quickly.
The big plan that they have is, I can't remember how they do it, but they get Doric's anti-magic cuff off.
So when Doric gets
In
kind
the
of shoved
cube,
into it,
like,
then
Oh,
the
it melts
cuff comes
it.
off.
Yeah, okay.
It's
So
stuck in there.
so that is the scene that they establish how dangerous it is with. It physically melted the metal off of her wrist.
It just gets stuck in there.
And then she's like, I know, because the Displacer Beast is about to eat them. She pushes them all into the gelatinous cube, and for like a full minute, she then takes that time to turn into a snake, and because the snake is smaller than the area she was in, I'm not sure that's really how jelly works.
No, so basically what she did was, this shouldn't have worked. She jumped in, she puts her finger out so that it goes outside the cube slightly. Then she turns into a snake and slithers out through the finger hole that she made.
Snakes are bigger than a finger.
Yeah. Wild.
All the while, the rest of the party are floating in acid and are just fine.
Like,
there's no repercussion.
No.
It's
Like,
so weird.
It's so random.
Like, that would have had to be at least, if you're going by like D&D rounds, that was like at least like 18 seconds. If you're
But it doesn't even matter about the rule book though, because I don't want it to just look like we're just, you're just being nerds and you know everything about you. They establish how dangerous it is,
like,
and then immediately ignore the rule that they just set up.
Yeah, so it's like, if you wanted them to all jump in, don't instantly be like, it kills, it instantly burns and feels like my arm's gonna melt off.
If they had gone like, my arm's stuck, and then after about 5 seconds they're like, that's something to sing, and it's like, okay, this is getting worse and worse, actually, please take me out. That would have been like, okay, you've got a moment. But she was instantly like,
If you pulled it in, it was like, I'm stuck, and it was like, oh my god, I need to get you out. If you stayed in there too long, it could hurt you. So it's like, I understand they understand it's risky, but like it's not going to instantly kill you.
Yeah,
it was silly.
So that was bad, basically.
That was wild. There's no way, if it was a game, you would ever think, I'm going to go inside the cube. You would never ever do that.
Getting out is hard.
It's hard.
You might not. It's not just obvious. Pull them out. Like no.
Anyway, so they get to the end. The Forge threatens Kira.
Can I just point out, by the way, we've been streaming for 2 hours.
I know.
I know we've been like chatting about this film has so much stuff in it. It's so difficult just to summarise everything that happens. We haven't even gotten to the main fucking flipping concept.
Oh my god, why are we so bad at this?
We haven't even gotten to the main fight yet. It's Jesus. So now they're in like the underworks of it.
They're in underneath. They find the ship. They take over the ship. Forge comes out like, come on, Kira, we're going to leave now. Then he threatens Kira.
At which point she's suspicious already, because she's like, this is weird.
This is weird.
Yeah.
Holger throws a potato at Forge and
which knocks him out because he threatens to kill her to stop them.
Kira.
they get on the boat and they are leaving.
They're like, da-da-da.
And they're like, we did it, we can escape because all
We've
of the
got
people
all
that we
this
care
treasure too.
and we've got the treasure.
Yay.
Oh, also previously, Zenk said to Edgin, promise me that you'll give all of the stuff that the treasure to, like, the townspeople and return it to people.
And he forces him to swear on it. And he's like, oh, fine.
He doesn't mean it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we get the big evil plan
The
activating.
beckoning death. So once again, Safina's just like... but this time...
It's quite funny because all the nobles are like, what? What's she doing?
What's she doing over there? So then she's like... and this time she, like, rises into the air and she's like... and then she, like, just rises up and then she's like... and then, like, beckoning death comes. All the nobles are immediately killed. But then it starts seeping out, like, the scene that Zenk talked about before. At the start of the games, Forge was like, "Oh, make sure you stay because there's going to be a gift for everyone at the end."
Which is the whole thing to make them all stay because then you have the most souls possible for her
and
to
literally
destroy.
everyone in the city is in this Colosseum,
Yeah.
so it's why she wanted it. She can turn them all into a zombie army and become an ultimate evil whatever.
Yeah. So then they see the beckoning death and they're like, "Oh, okay," and then they turn around and they go back to help. And then
that's the
Edgin,
heroes, by the way, not the crowd.
Okay.
The heroes are like, "Oh crap." Now I understand what she was doing.
Yeah,
I
this is
get
why
the
she
plan.
was using Forge.
They're gonna commit genocide. We should probably go help.
So then Edgin comes up with the plan because he's like, "Oh, what's the range on the staff?" And once again, the portal staff comes in very handy. And then
How
basically,
could it not?
Yeah.
so he sicks up the gold. They put the portal gun, the portal over Forge's mouth on a big hot air balloon. It all gets seeped down and then falls out of Forge's
Which
mouth.
also lightens the boat, lets them get quicker, all that kind of stuff. Like,
And then, so that's when little kid's like, "Mum, look, these are the gifts that Forge promised us," and they all start running out because all the gold's falling out of the sky.
because the hot air balloon is
like,
going away from the Colosseum, so everyone, and she's like, "No, my plan! It's not going to plan because for some reason the giant evil horn of legend has a shorter range than the random walking stick."
I was a little bit confused. I was like, "Oh, they're putting the gold out, cool." And then like suddenly cut to the stadium and it was empty, and I was like,
Very fast.
They all got out that quickly. Okay,
I guess.
It didn't really land.
I don't know if
well
anyone's
for me.
ever tried to leave a gig before.
Yeah, I was
It
like,
does
3
not happen that
hours.
quick.
Anything, unfortunately, I assume there would have been more deaths.
Like
if they were like, trying to get out to gold.
There is history in this country
Yes.
of really horrible events like that happening.
Yeah,
like it's
unfortunately,
not to
yes.
get too like realistic.
But,
No,
like-
I was very confused. I didn't realize what was happening. It was like empty. I was like, "Oh."
and again,
okay.
you can feel the cutting room. You can be like,
Yeah.
no, not enough time. They'll get it. They'll get
work it out.
Yeah, it's...
Even though it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So then they're all like rejoicing, like, the gold, and then that's when all the
Sorry, we've got a very funny comment.
Yeah.
Callum Drummond says, as someone who hasn't seen the movie, I was worried a little about spoilers watching this, but I'm relieved to say that after listening to this, I have absolutely no idea what this movie is about. Fair comment,
Yeah.
Callum.
I honestly was thinking, I was like, I feel like people can watch this and still go watch the movie and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
completely fine. So then they're all like, "Oh, we're gonna have to take Safina down properly." Kira goes invisible using the invisibility necklace that she was given at the start of the film. Olga-
another just like, hey, here's a random invisibility necklace.
I mean, that I don't mind as much because invisibility is quite a low level spell. And it's like,
Yeah.
and having that as a magic item is like, it's fine.
Sure.
I'm not like,
Yeah.
sure.
But then so they have a big fight against Safina. There's a bunch of cool visual stuff in this.
And it's the first fight where they're all
They're
working
all together.
Yeah.
I
And
want all of this all the time.
And that should have been, if that was the plan, a really good payoff. Again, if they had scenes earlier in the film where they were struggling to communicate with each other and they were getting in each other's way and all that kind of stuff.
That would have
been
been so
and that's
good.
why one person had to do all the fighting, and then finally they've learned to work together.
Yeah.
But
We're
there's just
strongest as a
nothing like
team.
that in the film.
Yeah, that would have been really good. But yeah, so they do a bunch of fights. There's like Safina like makes a dragon come to life. That's a statue. It's a bunch of cool visual stuff. There's a big beast hand scene where they're like fighting
Yeah,
with
and they like
hands.
reflavor some of the spells. They're like hers kind of look all weird and evil.
Yeah,
and
and
like,
his is
it's
just
cool.
gravel,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of fun stuff. Yeah, so they do that, and then at the end of the big fight. Oh, also, Holga. You don't see this happen.
Yeah, not
at
visualized
all.
in any way, shape, or form.
There's no way that she took out a knife and stabbed Holga, but apparently she did. did Holger
Yeah,
run at her and impale herself on the dagger? I don't know what happened.
A scene was cut there because...
What's so annoying? They gave Zenk that scene and don't use it! But then Holger, who actually has repercussions, is not visually stabbed anymore! Oh, God.
So then, so then Safina casts Time Stop. And they're
This is also annoying.
This is stupid. And then they're all like, oh no, I'm so sorry everyone. And they all freeze.
It's the Toy Story 3 we're all going into the melter scene. Where they're all looking at each other like, oh my god, this is the end.
How dare you compare that to this?
No, again, they've done it. They've done it worse. They've obviously done it worse, Liv. But like, it's that again. That's what they're doing. They're doing the thing where they're all looking at each other like, guys, this is it. We tried.
I'm so sorry.
We're gonna die heroes.
And then and then
it's a callback to the original scene that we talked about at the start.
Yeah.
She does Time Stop, and that's what ends up getting Holger and Egg caught, because Simon's like, I can't counter that, it's too powerful.
So then she's like monologuing, and she starts to cast Finger of Death, which is immediate death on whoever it's pointed at, and she's about to cast it on Edgin, which honestly risky.
Finger of Death is great. It's only if it brings you down to 0 HP, because remember it's like well, it's not a done spell, it's fun.
So watch now, Wheels uses that on Winona for no reason.
I feel like you have no idea what kind of
yes,
GM I am.
that reduces me to 0 hit points, feels like instantly killed.
I'm like triple dead right now.
I'm like triple dead right now.
I'm actually so dead right now. You Finger of Death me on 11 hit points, Wheels. Insane. So we have...
Please watch Storybreakers.
It's really good.
It's so good.
It's the best thing we've ever made on Dice Breaker, and if that doesn't sell you, I genuinely don't know what. We make fun.
Don't let this color you
we don't even swear in Storybreakers, kind of, probably. Okay, so and then she's like, Finger of Death, and then all of a sudden Edgin's like, wow, your breath really stinks. And he's like, well, we weren't actually time stopped at all.
Oh my god, that's so cringe. Did you think that we were going to be succumb to the spell that literally stopped us at the start of the film? That's so cringe.
While she's there, fully like corrupted by this black energy that she's about to like kill him dead, he's just like, wow, I'm gonna explain the plan the really good plan I made for you.
By the way, also straight lifted from Guardians of the Galaxy Descending, unfortunately,
really?
with the dance battle scene.
I have no idea what that is.
Distraction.
Woohoo! So basically, Invisible Kira slaps the suppressor cuff from the games onto Savina's hand, and then it's like, whoa, how did you counter the time stop? And then Simon's like, I got better.
I got better. I didn't have any character development in the film, but you can believe me that I leveled up at some point.
I'm gonna have to tell you that I got better because you didn't see it at any point. So I'm just gonna let you know right now
I've
that's
got to
what
say that
happened.
out loud because there's no way you would have known
Also,
otherwise.
another thing, the Helm of Disjunction, which is a super powerful magical item, he just throws it away!
Oh my god.
Wild. And then she's like, no, and then she's got the suppressor cuff on her, and then that's when Doric turns into an owlbear, and then completely decimates her.
That I liked.
It's just like, throws her into a wall, falls on the ground,
It's been done, but I thought it was fun. Because
it just worked.
It's that classic thing of, again, in a D&D campaign, they're not just like, oh, let her have her fun. It's just, no, murder. I hate this guy.
Yeah.
We've been
Terrible
fighting him
person.
for 400 sessions.
Yeah.
Murder.
And because you just gotta reduce her 0 HP, so it's not like we could cut off her head and it'd be fine. It's like, that's not how it works. You have to just smash the health to 0. So I feel like that was just a good representation of be like, she's just trying to get to 0.
Thank you, Callum Drummond, for a super chat as well. Thank you so much. Everyone's been very, very lovely in the stream. We appreciate all the support. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We really appreciate the support. It really helps. Genuinely helps. So then, and then we cut over to like, oh, where's Holger? Oh, she's over in the corner. She's been stabbed by a red wizard's blade. It did not happen.
So she has to die now.
It didn't happen.
Also, the first time we've ever seen a red wizard's blade.
No,
No,
so
that's what happens at the beginning to his wife.
So I actually noticed in this third watching of it that next to the wife's head, didn't notice this in IMAX.
It was too big.
Too big.
Trying to look around the screen.
Oh, it's over there.
Whoa! So next to her head, you can see the same red wizard's blade just chilling there. They just left it there. I don't know.
Why has he been using that the entire time?
Do you know what it reminds me of? You know when you watch mobster films, they shoot him and they drop the gun next to him. I'm always like, why are you doing that, bro? Go put it in a bin.
Why? Put it in the bin.
Throw it in the prison.
So then, so it's the same blade, and it's like, oh my god, I read Wizard's Blade, and Edgar's like, Simon, help him, and he's like, oh, I can't.
I'm so sorry, there's nothing you can do.
It's just like how your wife died, oh my god.
The
Also,
only thing that could possibly resurrect her.
Edgar and Doric are the ones who are more likely to have healing spells, but whatever. And then she dies, and they have a little sing-song. Which sounds weird, but
She's
they do.
dying.
Yeah, he's a bard, so he
He's a bard.
sings her goodbye.
They've sung before as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's a
it's
song
very
she
clear that
likes.
she likes that,
Yeah.
and it's a thing that she appreciates that he
Yeah.
does. So it's not weird.
It's not weird.
It's not weird, but it's not
You're
cringe.
making it weird.
Stop saying it's cringe! Stop saying my fantasy movie about my game is cringe!
You mean so mean?
It's cool. It's my world. You can't tell me what to do. So, and then Kira's like, no, don't go.
And then it's like, oh!
No, don't die, you're so sexy.
You're so sexy!
So true, though. No, you're so sexy.
And then it's like, oh no, this is actually the mother that she knew, and like we care about her, and like I was being selfish with my wife, and then let's use the stone to bring.
You can only use it one time. Lol.
Make this
Because it's a
decision
MacGuffin.
instead.
Yeah,
it's-
and then she it's honestly this could have been a good scene, but then like immediately she like falls asleep, and then she wakes up again like, whoa, what? You used it on me, and then it's like, oh, that's
Yeah.
not.
It almost felt like
Not super well
they
done.
should have come back to it rather than doing it immediately. I think that would have had more weight because
Like he
because
had
it's
to make
so
the big decision.
yeah.
like-
It's almost like they should have been like, oh, we'll need a funeral and all that kind of stuff. And then, like, I don't know, he has that realization at home, and
They
it's
could
like,
have-
no.
They
you
could
need
have
to-
done a thing where, like, he came off of the barge and he was like, oh, the tablet isn't here. And he was trying to hide it from everyone. And then, although that would have made sense. But you just don't realize he has it, and then later on you're like, oh, he's like, oh,
It's just, the payoff is too instant.
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
kind of
Wasn't
deflates
as it
it a
could
little
have
bit.
been.
Yeah.
Which isn't the
Also-
end of the world, but it's just a bit like...
Also, in the back of that scene, you can see that Doric and Simon are hugging very
Still doesn't
awkwardly.
make it work. Still doesn't make it work.
It's like- literally, like-
they're not the ghosts in Haunting of Hill House, you know. They're main characters, right?
Yeah.
That was a really sweet hug you guys just shared, by the way. That was
Thank you
really
so
nice.
much.
I love to hug my friends.
We love to hug our friends here on
What do I do with my feet?
What do you do with your feet? They resurrect Holga. Then they have a fun little scene at the end. It's fireworks going off. Yay! Yay!
family.
And then they have a dance off.
Then Doric reluctantly gets with Simon.
And so I was like, oh, what
gross.
if we dated again? She's like, yeah, sure.
Okay, I
and it's
guess.
like, this doesn't make any sense, but fine.
it. She's
I know
gay,
I'm
it's
the
on.
same person, and the only thing that has
Has
changed
no character
is that I can
growth.
use a helmet that doesn't fit me properly now.
And I got rid
What
of.
if we shagged?
She's like, yeah, I guess. It's like,
I
I would love.
pity shag me.
I can put on the helmet.
Backwards so you can't see my face.
Oh my god. My favourite thing about this new backdrop is that when I laugh really hard, I turn the same colour.
That's like colour match how much fun we're having.
Yeah, we camouflage. But yeah, I would love some enthusiastic
That's the
consent,
movie.
but okay, whatever. And then it's like, oh, fan family, yay. And then Forge is in the prison and he tries to do the Aarakocra thing and it's like, Jonathan! But then they've patched up the wall and that's
It's
it.
fun.
Jonathan!
Callum Drummond says this behaviour coming from half to 2/3 of a can. Is this really just really strong stuff? Or are these such as lightweights? No, we just love each other's company.
No,
Yeah.
this is just
And
how
we
we
have great
act.
chemistry, and we're very good friends.
If
Yeah.
you saw how we've been all day together alone in the office,
I
it's
know.
no different.
Also, every single stream we ever do ends up like this, and
Yeah.
we don't drink on those.
No, it just
I
high
didn't
on
even finish this. Like I just.
No, I'm like
I finished mine.
here.
I finished my Dungeons and Dragons cider.
We like
just
literally
love chatting.
So there are 3 levels to this office. We have a whole floor to ourselves because no one wants to be around our nonsense.
Some other people came and sat down the other day, and I don't think they'll come again because I was being so obnoxious.
We were playing Wild Frost, which was very cute, by the way.
Oh, it's really fun and
Review
good.
coming on Saturday, but spoiler alert, it's flipping good.
If you like Slay the Spire, deck builders,
Yeah.
or if you haven't played it and always meant to, like me, get this one instead. It's fun. It's cute.
Yeah, it's
Big fan.
I'm excited to play it.
pretty.
I'm gonna do so because
That's pretty what we're all gonna do tonight.
yeah.
Separately.
We're all going to do the daily run, and
Yes.
finally we'll have those last few moments of the public can't play it yet, so
I
we're
was
actually
number
on
one
a
in the world
leaderboard.
for a second, for like an hour, because no one else, out of 4 people, because no one else had played it. That's number 1.
You can always say that now.
And
You've
I've got
that
picture. I've got a horrible picture I took of my Switch and sent to Wheels. So.
Smitty Werben Jan Mensen, he was number 1. Anyone? Any SpongeBob fans?
I did not watch SpongeBob as a kid.
Oh,
I
that's
TV.
a deep cut, honestly.
Okay, no, it's not. It's a very popular
It's a deep
episode.
cut.
Carry on.
Carry on with this. Is the name of the stream wheel.
Look, I googled Smitty and it auto completed. Smitty Werben Jägerman Jensen. He was number 1.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
not.
you very much.
I'm not trying to say it's not. I'm just saying I'm one of the rare people that didn't have
No,
SpongeBob
no, no.
on my TV as a kid.
Liv called it a deep cut. I was calling her
Yeah,
out.
it's a fairly deep cut.
You could do no wrong, man.
Also,
Don't worry about
Callan,
it.
this is how this is my work life. It's like, oh hey Liv,
I'm doing the
you
scene
didn't-
from Parks
hey,
and Rec.
Liv, you didn't put an end screen on the end of this. I
That's what
hate
you said
you.
to me today. That was
No,
directed at
and then
me.
it was like, oh, don't worry, Maddie, that you didn't do that. That's fine.
I
And then-
literally didn't say that.
Wheels was like, you didn't put an end screen on this video. Ever heard of those? And I was
Okay,
like, this is the one time I forgot.
Look,
Because
it's
I had to
live
put 20
propaganda.
different links in the video, and I had to do that on Saturday off at work time. So
No, why would you do that? Don't
Because
do
I
that.
forgot the links. And I was
do
trying,
that.
because that's how hard I work. So he was like, ever heard of those? So don't you come in here and tell me that I get some
As
treatment.
if.
I also did lean over like Maddie's shoulder and look at the thumbnail she was making and was like, ew.
I literally just got all my assets and put them in one document and ready to cut them out. And it was like, Wheels, come look at this thumbnail.
Oh my god, yeah.
I haven't done it yet. And Liv wasn't, to be fair to Liv, she wasn't being like, look, it's ugly.
No,
because
I
I haven't done it. She was saying something else and it was funny. But at first I thought she was just like, ew, that's so ugly. And I was like, I literally just moved 2 assets into the file.
It's like Maddie was writing a script and wrote the title, and it was like, wow, this sucks.
Yeah, like, this is nothing.
Maddie, I have some comments. What if you made it good? For one thing.
So, like and
All
subscribe.
the time.
Yeah, like and subscribe to Dice Breaker.
Also,
because
yes.
we're just a nonsense trio of people.
Also, yes, Break Quest Club is coming back.
Yes.
Callan Drummond has said, and it's going to be fun. We're just trying to sort some stuff out. It's been very busy, but
We're already
getting there.
running one hit D&D show, you know?
Yeah.
It's difficult
Go
to be
watch that
involved in
one
another.
if you want some.
Yeah, that's out right now. All of season 1, the
Video.
season finale,
Podcast.
episode 14, if you've not watched it yet, was heartbreaking.
It was a banger, honestly.
Yes.
Like,
It was
Upsetting.
It was so much drama.
yeah, a lot of drama.
and you're
Honestly,
missing out.
excellent performance by Alex Meehan. Excellent performance. Very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should check it out. Check out the whole thing. Let us know what you thought. But yeah, I guess we're done.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for listening to us talk the entire movie.
I know.
And look, we did it in an hour, 2 hours and 20 minutes. So
That's the runtime
that's
of the
about
film.
the runtime of the film.
We did it!
Oh my god, you don't have to go watch the film now. You can just watch
Literally.
this. And,
Or watch the film and put us on over the top of it.
yes! And then we're just like screaming about Tabaxi and like.
I was completely not lined up with the movie.
Yeah. Talking about things like 3 hours at the end and like, oh yeah.
It's like that TikTok of the guy trying to do the quote of like, first they came for the socialists and I did nothing. And it like, they show all the words and he got like 3 of them correct. Oh god.
Thank you so much for
guys.
watching.
Camden
you
says,
like
wait,
this-
so Story Breakers is a D&D thing? Yeah, it's our D&D
Oh,
actual.
yeah.
It's a replacement for Dungeon Breaker, our original. And it's 4 billion times better. So there you go.
It's so good.
Yeah, we had fun
I know that
time.
we made it, but it is so good.
Yeah.
Like every time I go back and edit something, or like go back and like watch the video to try and like get something for like a social or something, I'm like, oh my god, this is incredible.
I've
This is so
consumed
good.
a lot of like actual play content and it's genuinely
Liv's
very,
our
very
AP
good.
expert, so you can take a word for it.
Yeah.
Laura B says, this has been fun. Love you guys. I don't comment a lot, but no, I appreciate your content. We appreciate
thank
you,
you
Laura
so
B.
much,
Thank you very
Laura
much for joining us.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, like I said, this Saturday we've got our review of Wild Forest coming out, so if you like digital
yeah,
card
yeah.
games, even if you don't, watching it's
check it out.
really good game.
Yeah.
And it might
love it.
it might be, pardon me, your introduction into that sort of
It's
genre.
my introduction, and I'm a big fan.
Into it.
Huge.
Yeah, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. That would mean a lot to us. Ring the bell if you want to know when we put new videos up, and we do a lot every week, in fact. So
many. And so many more exciting things coming.
That's true. It's true.
More and more, always.
If you want to find out more about the D&D film, stuff like that, you can keep an eye on the channel, maybe. But also, you can go over to dicebreaker.com, where we have a plethora of articles to do with the film and also all sorts of other tabletop
We recently
stuff.
had a freelancer write about like settings that they could do for the second movie, which is
Yeah.
kind of fun.
Yeah.
We've also got, if you are not aware, or if you used to be a Dicebreaker Plus member and didn't carry on over, if you go over to dicebreaker.com/subscribe, we've got a full membership program. It's a way for you to support Dicebreaker as a company, and help us stay in our jobs.
Yeah,
but without any cut going to anyone but us, which is nice for us because it means that we get like the funding that we need to make this stuff happen.
Exactly. You know, when you send super chats and you're like, oh, it doesn't make a difference, it does because it helps keep us in like a job. So,
and like it's like especially to the membership, it's just like that's things we can be like point to and look and be like, people are supporting us, like it's good, you know, like you know, it's it's
because
good.
we've all got corporate overlords.
yeah.
We want to prove that people like us a little.
Hi Zoe.
Hi.
Tipsy spoilercast, by which I mean we've all had up to one beer.
Didn't finish
Which, to be fair, if Zoe was on this, would be true. So there you go.
Yeah.
Big lightweight.
I mean, me and Maddie haven't drunk in like several years now, so every time we drink, we're like, ugh.
So thank you very much for watching.
Thank
we
you.
will see you on the next one, but until then, have a lovely day.
Goodbye.